Yo guys, what's poppin'? This is gonna be a long one, so let me explain. So you've probably noticed that I uploaded about like 23 Vergil combos from May to October 2022, and you might be wondering what that's all about. So this is me elaborating on that. Just a disclaimer, this is the intro, so in this section I simply talk about what drove me to make this video. I have a tendency to make things really dragged out, so if you don't want to watch this part, you can skip it. I left timestamps all over the video, so if there's only a particular thing you're interested in, feel free to just see that thing. But the bottom line, the thing you need to know is, this video is essentially a Vergil guide. One half of this video is just me talking about Vergil's whole moveset, all of his weapons, all of his key mechanics, some mechanics that are universal to all characters in DMC. Then I talk about his judgment cut mechanic, and then I talk about the Doppelganger, which is basically the meat of this video. Talking about the Doppelganger, how he works, covering just about everything I know about the Doppelganger, and then I also discuss certain Doppelganger setups. Of course, I also preface the whole thing by talking about my control scheme, my layout. So that's basically what this video is all about. It's a guide on Vergil for, more casual players, and it's also a guide on the Doppelganger, because there's not a single Doppelganger guide out there that I could find. So this video is part 1 of a series of 24 videos. So this is video 1 out of 24. So, in this video, like I said, I discuss Vergil's moveset, weapons, enemy step, judgment cut, Doppelganger, all of his key mechanics, and also my controls, but then I will individually upload all of the 23 combos I did, but I will analyze them. So they will be combo analyses, where I analyze very in-depth. I analyze all of these combos individually, going over all of the possible mistakes you can make, why you can make them, how you can make them, how to avoid them, and basically going over, just dissecting these combos individually. So that is essentially what this series is going to be. Vergil combo analysis and Doppelganger guide. Basically, I'm going to make a playlist. This is the video to refer to if you want to learn about the basics, how the Doppelganger works and all that stuff. But if you want more specific things, then I would encourage you to watch all of those combos that I analyzed, or, well, will analyze. So for more than 2 to 3 years now, I've been eyeing a lot of DMC5 professional combo creators. And what I mean by that is I would check random combo videos on YouTube, like combo mads, and, I think I've seen just about every combo video on YouTube, even the most obscure ones. It got so bad, in fact, that I had to go to Twitter, so I took to Twitter, and I found a bunch of these DMC, combo creators, and I went into their likes, and I saw that they were following other combo creators who were also professional players. So, a lot of these people, they post on Twitter. Most of them are Japanese, but, yeah, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant right now. So, I saw a bunch of combos on Twitter as well. I even took to Bilibili, the Chinese alternative to YouTube, or whatever, Chinese YouTube. I even saw some combos there, and I made a collection, right? And I've been collecting these combos for well over 3 years. I think ever since DMC5 dropped in 2019, I've been doing this. But, when Vergil came out, I kind of stepped my game up. I never really, I've always been a Dante main, and I still, I'm not sure if I'm a main, because I still play Dante and Vergil, to the same extent. But, since Vergil is still relatively newer, I guess that's why, I kind of pick him more frequently nowadays. So DMC combos to me are just therapeutic. It's really, watching them is really cathartic. It's like ASMR, except I'm not into ASMR. I'm into DMC combos. The only, there are 2 things I really enjoy doing. It's watching DMC combos and animation sequences on Sakugaburu, like the weeb that I am. But anyway, the thing I'm trying to say is, it's just really nice being able to follow all of these combo creators, and I know what they're doing, right? Like, I can follow it for the most part, but it's precisely because I can follow what they're doing that I never really bothered to replicate these combos, because I knew that, this requires a lot of skill. You need the dexterity of a world-class pianist sometimes, and I never really bothered to do combos of my own. I was like, I can only do some more basic stuff, And that's why I simply was content with watching combos and, getting a kick out of that. And I was always just astonished by the creativity employed in these combos. The fact that all of these players even come up with these ideas, let alone are able to execute them, is just still mind-boggling to me, even after this whole journey. So what kind of sparked this? Or, well, it didn't really spark anything. The first thing I did was I did 6 Dante combos, and I did these in January and February of 2022. And it took an excruciating amount of work. It was absolutely tantalizing. I would replicate combos that I saw on Twitter that were advanced, but not too advanced. I guess you could say semi-advanced. What's kind of, characteristic for these combos is that I would always end them with Cerberus Combo D. And let me explain why. The reason for this was because I only saw this combo used in like 3 combos. No one ever uses it because it's got it doesn't really have very good juggle properties or something. So, it really requires specific scenarios. But I was like, nah, I'm going to use this move to prove something. And I was happy with it, but really it took so many tries that I don't even know, honestly. So I did it, but I was kind of exhausted afterwards. So I was like, alright, I've proven to myself that I can do semi-advanced combos, that I have the speed, but, I tried certain sequences and I just couldn't pull them off, and I was like, this is bad for my health. I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm not going to replicate any more Dante combos, because even things that seemed easy were not, in fact, easy in practice. So if something looks easy in theory, a lot of the times, more often than not, it's not going to be that easy in practice. But at that point, I was like, I'm not going to be doing any more DMC combos. I'm content with this. But then, around, I think it was April of 2022, I saw that, the infamous I Am the Storm That Is Approaching combo that's got like 15 million views. And that, the combo that sparked this whole, I think it elevated this, this DMC culture. Now everyone knows about DMC. I'm not saying it's because of this combo or the video. I'm just saying, Bury the Light has almost 100 million views. This video has 15 million views. You see Vergil everywhere, literally. So, I just feel like this, those Vergil statuses and memes, it's everywhere. You see some hentai and then Vergil slashes the screen and you hear Bury the Light. So, yeah, but anyway, I'd known about this combo for a while, but I decided to rewatch it. And as I was closely observing, the combo, I noticed certain things. I noticed that the combo, and, it didn't really look that difficult. It didn't really look that complex. So I was like, I feel like I should be able to replicate almost everything in this combo. The only thing that I'm not sure about is the doppelganger part. And that is where this whole thing started, basically. The combo by Sunhee Legend, or Sunhai Legend, I'm really not sure how to pronounce his name, but the original creator of this combo, he cropped the video, so I couldn't really see the health bar, I couldn't really see the HUD, and by extension, I couldn't really see which version of the doppelganger he was using. Was it slow? Was it normal? Was it haste? I simply had no way of knowing. I couldn't ascertain anything. But then, so I basically was like, yeah, I don't really care, I'm not gonna try this. So, the doppelganger had always been an enigma to me, ever since Vergil dropped. I knew that it was a godsend for combos, but I rarely, if ever, saw it being used very effectively, even by professional players. It all seemed very random, and whenever I would play the game, I'd be like, well, why would I use the doppelganger when I can simply sacrifice my double trigger energy for my Sin DT, which is way more useful? And during gameplay, I still stand by that. I feel like the doppelganger it's a godsend. It's an absolute godsend for combos. But during gameplay, you know, in missions and all, I still feel like your Sin DT is a lot more useful. I would only use the Doppelganger for that quadruple Judgment Cut because, you know, it deals an insane amount of damage. But aside from that, I would never use the Doppelganger. I knew the basics, I knew you had different modes, but I was like, bro, what's going on? Every time I summon this dude, he never really does what I say. It's completely random to me. And because of that, I had given up on that mechanic. But then I started following this guy on YouTube. His name is Maker T. And I still stand by this. I think he is the best Vergil player on the planet. Now, I know this is really subjective, but at least in terms of how he uses the Doppelganger, I would say he is unmatched. The only other person who uses the Doppelganger as effectively is Mashal 201. These two are just completely insane. So, at that point, when I saw how beautifully clean his combos were, I couldn't help but wonder, how is he doing this? How is he using Rapid Slash and the Doppelganger is using Void Slash? How is he doing this? So I started looking at his controller, and I noticed certain things, and I decided to test them out myself in the Void. And sure enough, I started cracking the code. It wasn't easy, it was very rough around the edges, but that's essentially what happened. I was starting to come to grips with how the mechanic works. Roughly, of course. After a certain period of time, it didn't take me way too long, I realized that the Doppelganger version that was being used in that combo, you know, by Sunhee Legend, was actually the haste version of the Doppelganger, but he didn't wait for the Doppelganger to form, he summoned the Doppelganger, and while he was still a blur, before he was fully formed, he used Rapid Slash. That's how he managed to make sure that the Doppelganger stays in place and doesn't follow him. So, at that point, I decided to replicate that legendary combo. And it took a while, not gonna lie. I still stand by the fact that it's one of the easiest combos on the list, but, you know, since it was my first combo that I replicated, it took me a while. And that's when I finally finished the combo. I was very proud of myself. And then I decided to do two more combos. One that ends with Hell on Earth, and the other that ends with Deep Stinger. I wanted to have, like, 3 combos with 3 different ultimates. But then I started browsing my folder, and I started going through all of the Vergil videos I had compiled. And I went through every single one, and I'm very picky when it comes to my DMC combos, and I decided to replicate all of the, like, to select, you know, all of the best ones in my opinion. And then I had 18 combos. But then this number kept changing, and in the end, we had 23 combos that I decided to replicate. Sometimes I would improvise, I would combine combos in certain parts from different players, but I had to make sure that all of the Doppelganger parts were there. I wanted this complexity and this, you know, clean vibe. So like I said, I could never properly utilize the Doppelganger mechanic beforehand. And when I started replicating these combos, I started from, you know, I started doing easier combos, then I, you know, worked my way up to more complex combos, and all of a sudden the Doppelganger mechanic wasn't that convoluted to me. It was actually completely comprehensible. But there were other things that I had to take note of, and these things proved to be way more convoluted than the Doppelganger mechanic. And one thing that is very, very just, it really makes these, it encumbers every combo, it's the camera. It's the one thing that really screwed up so many of my attempts, and there are other factors that I simply cannot explain. There were so many instances in which I would do a combo and I would execute the Doppelganger sequence perfectly, or nigh immaculately, but then something else would fuck me up. Something that I had no control over or could not explain. I wanted to do these videos, I wanted to do these combos outside of the Void. So I used SS Scions, I don't really know, Collaborative Trainer, which allowed me to hide the HUD, allowed me to, like, give enemies infinite HP, to make it so that they don't take damage, and, you know, disable enemy AI, all of this stuff. So that's how I did these combos outside of the void and without using, that's why I didn't have any HUD, because I used this trainer. So this journey spanned 6 months. I started my first combo in May. That was the, the legendary combo. And then for the next 6 months, I would do, like, I did my last combo in, I think it was October. So 23 combos, 6 months, almost 7, I don't really know. And this journey was so game-changing to me that I simply felt like I had to share this with the world and with the DMC community. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because there is not a single doppelganger guide on YouTube for Vergil. There is some video made by Bibsy and another video made by Kyo called Vergil's Dojo, but it still doesn't really go over doppelganger setups all that well. And I was just, mind blown by this. Like, how can you have such a complex mechanic and not explain how it works? Just fend for yourself. If you figure it out, you figured it out. But it really didn't sit right with me, so that is why I'm doing this. Another reason why I'm doing this, the other reason, is that I've seen a lot of people talk about how Vergil is too OP, he's easy to use, he's a free win, he could never be as complex as Dante. And while that may be true, that he might never be as complex as Dante, because Dante's got so many things at his disposal, this doppelganger mechanic makes him so infinitely more complex and fun to use, and I really want to bring that to the forefront. I really want to drive home this point that Vergil is not some easy character that noobs pick for casual play. No, he's a lot more than that. He is incredibly complex. Now, these combos would sometimes take me well over several hundred tries. I think there were certain combos that took me possibly even more than 1,000 tries, really. And it was just, I powered through it. It's so odd to me because you have no idea how much I struggle with just motivation, no pun intended. So me doing anything is very, very, it's like, for example, I really love playing video games, watching anime, shows, movies, of course, I love these things. But in the last few years, I've been struggling to find motivation to start anything. Once I start something, it's all smooth sailing from there. But before that, just initiating something, that is the most painful part for me. And, that's why I find it so odd that I would dedicate such a disproportionate amount of time to something this specific. I just can't understand myself sometimes, really. I guess that's the power of motivation, the power of Vergil. But, like I said, I could never properly utilize the mechanic. Now I can. And these combos were not easy. Like I said, sometimes a combo may seem perfectly, easy to do. You see something and you're like, this is feasible. But then you try the combo and you're like, oh, wait, no, what's going on? And muscle memory can really be a bitch. Sometimes you just keep doing something against your will because you're used to it, like habitual movement and all. And that's really something that you gotta surmount, that you gotta overcome. But it's not the main problem, believe me. But there are always so many factors and variables that you gotta consider and take into account when it comes to these combos. Like, sometimes one small window or frame, one small cancel, one mistake, a fraction of a second, and everything goes to hell. So sometimes you gotta prematurely input things. It's just a journey, believe me, and I want to facilitate this journey for anyone who aspires to do these combos or learn about the doppelganger. So that's the whole point, basically. And check this out. I mean, look, it took me so much work to figure out how all this worked and to replicate already existing combos. But imagine the players who came up with these combos, who came up with these setups, and then executed them without even knowing if they would work. That takes a mind-boggling, divine level of inspiration and creativity, and not to mention knowledge of the game and the mechanics, that I simply cannot fathom. To me, DMC is like a work of art, and I'm not trying to be edgy or corny, but the mechanics in this game, the freedom you have, the variety, the sheer coolness of the game, It is too much. I will never be able to get over it. This is why this is one of my favorite video games of all time. The way you can simply do, you know, and it's just, I don't know, man. I'm fanboying like crazy right now. I'm gushing over the game like 4 years, almost 5 years after its release. So, yeah, I don't want to do that, but like I said, even though I'm very proud of these combos, I don't want to give myself all the credit or too much credit. I still want to keep myself kind of humble because I think the original players deserve all the praise they can get. And because I think they're so praiseworthy, I will link all of their videos. So, you know, when I analyze a certain combo, right? And let's say this combo consists of 2 combos from 2 different players. I will link the original combos from these players in the description of that video. So I will give credit where it's due. So, you know, that's the least I can do, believe me. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I should preface this by talking about my controls. So, I play this game using my mouse and keyboard. Yeah, really. Blasphemy, I know. But I think that if you've ever played a single game on your PC using a mouse and a keyboard, these controls should be familiar to you. I think they're very easy to grasp. So, just like with almost every game ever, WASD are the keys you use for movement. So, W is forward, S is backwards, A is left, D is right. This is the equivalent to you using your analog stick for moving, like tilting it left, right, you know, forward, backward. That's basically what I use. So, again, W, forward, S, backward, A, left, D, right. Obviously, just like in every game ever, space is jump. So I jump using space. The left mouse button, unsurprisingly, is the attack button. Also, like in every game ever. The right mouse button is the button I use for Mirage blades. So, all my Mirage blade attacks are mapped to the right button. The right mouse button, I mean. So, that's basically it for these basic controls. Shift is the button I use for locking on. So when I lock on, I press shift. In this game, you gotta be locked on for just about any attack ever. Only under specific circumstances should you release the lock on. But yeah, basically lock on is shift in my case. So next up we've got the trick action. So, you know, trick up, down, air trick, all that stuff. I use E, so E is the button I use. So if I press E without locking on, that is trick up. If I press E while locking on, like shift plus E, that is air trick, and I teleport. If I press back to forward plus E, or S plus W plus E, that is trick down. So, like I said, E is the trick action. That's the button I use for tricking, basically. R is the button I use for taunting, so that's the taunt button. Air taunts, lock on taunts, doesn't matter. R is the button you gotta press for taunting. Moving on, I have F, and F is the button I use to charge my Sin double trigger. So I press and hold F, then I release it, and I basically go into my Sin double trigger mode. Moving on, we also have 1 and 2. So 1 is the button for changing the weapon to the right. So my layout is as follows. I use the default layout for my weapons, my arsenal. So it goes Yamato, Beowulf, Mirage Edge. So if I have the Yamato equipped and I press 1, it will switch to Beowulf, which is the weapon to its right. And if I press 1 again, it will switch from Beowulf to the Mirage Edge, which is the weapon to its right. If I have the Yamato equipped, and I press 2, it will go to the weapon that's on its left, and that is the Mirage Edge. If I press 2 again, it will switch to Beowulf. If I press 2 again, it will once again switch to the Yamato. So that's how this works. It's for switching weapons left and right. That's how it works. Moving on, we have the Doppelganger buttons. So the buttons are as follows. X is the slow doppelganger. This is a doppelganger that is kind of delayed by about, I don't know, half a second or something. So that's X. C is the normal doppelganger. He is slightly delayed, not by half a second, but like he's just not completely in sync with you. So that's C. And V is the haste version of the doppelganger who is completely in sync with you, meaning that he immediately reacts to your commands and he mimics your inputs. He registers them immediately and simply reacts to them. So, yeah. I deactivate the doppelganger by pressing Z. So that's how I do it. And, you know, that's pretty much... those are all the controls, really. There are some other things like... you know, using CTRL to basically lock on to multiple targets, or, I mean, switch the lock on, stuff like that, or using the arrows, using, you know, it just doesn't matter, really. These are the main things that you will need. So, if I say, I'm pressing D plus left mouse button, that means that I'm pressing right plus attack button. If I say I'm pressing S plus W plus left mouse button, that means I'm pressing back to forward plus attack button. Kind of like tilting your analog stick back and then forward and then pressing the attack button. So that's how it works. If I say back to forward plus right mouse button, or S plus W plus right mouse button, that is basically back to forward plus your Mirage blade button. So heavy rain blades in my case. But don't worry, most of the time, like 99% of the time, I'll say right plus attack button instead of D plus left mouse button, because I feel like that's more universally comprehensible, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, now with that out of the way, we can finally talk about the more important things. Alright, so Vergil has 3 melee weapons. He has the Yamato, which is his katana, you know, his main weapon. He's got Beowulf, his gauntlets and greaves, basically a punch and kick weapon, and he's got the Mirage Edge, which is basically this long sword that's made of Vergil's demonic aura, basically. So these are his 3 melee weapons. He also has the Mirage Blades. Now, the Mirage Blades are essentially his gun replacement, because as you already know, unlike Dante and Nero, Vergil obviously doesn't use guns. So he's got these mini spectral swords that he can basically conjure and eject in a way. So that's pretty cool. And I feel like I should actually start talking about the Mirage Blades. I know it may seem like an odd choice to start talking about that, but believe me, there's a reason for it. Okay, so there are 5 attacks you can do with the Mirage Blades. The first thing you can do is just mash the Mirage Blade button. In my case, the Mirage Blade button is the right mouse button. So just mashing the right mouse button causes this to happen. Vergil just, you know, ejects these summon swords, essentially. This is a godsend for keeping enemies airborne. They deal a minuscule amount of damage, and they don't really increase your style rank, but they're just really good overall. Like, they're very useful. But that's like the basic attack with the Mirage Blades, just mashing the right mouse button, or well, the Mirage Blade button. But there are 4 other attacks that you can use with the Mirage Blades, and we're going to start with Spiral Blades. Now, Spiral Blades are essentially, it's this move where you just press and hold the Mirage Blade button, or in my case, the right mouse button. Once you do this, these Mirage Blades will basically appear around Vergil, and they'll start spinning, and they'll basically damage everything around him. If you press and hold the right mouse button, or well, the Mirage Blade button, again, like you press and you hold it, and then you release it, what's going to happen is these Mirage Blades will stop spinning, and then when you release the Mirage Blade button, they will basically disperse, they'll scatter, hitting everything around you. So that's basically this move, the Spiral Blades. Now let's move on to the Storm Blades. Now, the Storm Blades are basically kind of the same thing, in a way. It's kind of like you press back plus Mirage Blade button, or S plus, in my case, S plus right mouse button, And Vergil will do this move, so these Mirage Blades will appear not around Vergil, but around the enemy. And when you release the Mirage Blade button, or well, the right mouse button in my case, these swords will launch the enemy into the air. So that's Stormblades. Now, I think this is the perfect time to start talking about something that is incredibly, incredibly crucial. So like I said, there's a reason why I decided to talk about the Mirage Blades first. And this is just a segue for me to talk about something that's a lot more general and that is crucial to this game. And this doesn't just apply to Vergil, it applies to every person, every character in this game. So DMC works kind of like a fighting game. What I mean by that is your commands change based on the camera. Or, well, your position, the angle. You know how in fighting games your commands completely change when you're on the right side as opposed to the left side? Yeah, well, it's the same with DMC. So if your enemy is in front of you like this and you're facing them like this, like forward, it's straight. You want to do the Stormblades by pressing back plus Mirage Blade button, or in my case, S plus right mouse button. But if you are on the left side, you press left plus right mouse button, or well, left plus Mirage Blade button, A plus right mouse button. If you're on the right side, you press right plus Mirage Blade button, or D plus, right mouse button. And if you're behind the enemy, like this, then you press W plus right mouse button, or forward plus Mirage Blade button. So if you're facing the enemy like this, again, like it's straight, he's in front of you, that is back plus Mirage Blade button. If you're behind the enemy, forward plus Mirage Blade button. If you're on the left, left plus Mirage Blade button. If you're on the right, right plus Mirage Blade button. This applies to every move in this game, every directional move. Also, another thing that is very important, you can do a single attack in this game, a single directional attack, without locking on. You have to be locked on in this game almost permanently. So, for me, like I said, Shift is my lock-on, and you can see that I'm constantly pressing lock-on, I'm constantly locked on. I only release the lock-on when I have to do something specific, or do a move that actually specifically requires you to let go of the lock-on, like Trick Up, for example. So, that's kind of important. This isn't a Vergil exclusive thing, this applies to everyone in this game. Dante, Nero, V, and it's been this way since DMC 1, basically. So, like I said, these are the Stormblades. Moving on, we have the Blistering Blades. The Blistering Blades are, again, if you're facing the opponent like this, they're in front of you, that is forward plus Mirage Blade button, or W plus right mouse button. If you're behind the enemy, it's down plus right mouse button, or well, S plus Mirage Blade button. If you're on the left side, it is right plus Mirage Blade button, or D plus right mouse button. And if you're on the right, it's left plus Mirage Blade button, or A plus right mouse button. So it completely changes, the commands change based on the side. Alright, so that's basically this move. Vergil ejects these summon swords, I think there are 8 of them, and they deal quite a considerable amount of damage, honestly. So, yeah. And moving on, arguably the most important and the coolest move with the Mirage Blades, the Heavy Rain Blades. So Vergil essentially does this, you press back plus forward plus Mirage Blade button, or S plus W plus right mouse button if the enemy is in front of you like this. And Vergil will basically conjure up these Mirage Blades. I think there are 24 of them or something. And when you release the Mirage Blade button, they will basically fall directly onto the enemy. And they will freeze them in time and space. So that is very important. This move appears in a lot of combos and is one of the most useful and coolest moves in the game. So again, it's back plus forward plus Mirage Blade button if the enemy is in front of you, or S plus W plus right mouse button. If you're behind the enemy, it's going to be the reverse. It's going to be forward plus back plus Mirage Blade button, or W plus S plus right mouse button. If you're on the left side, it's left plus right plus Mirage Blade button, or A plus D plus right mouse button. And if you're on the right side, it's right plus left plus Mirage Blade button, or D plus A plus the right mouse button. So that is basically really, really important. Now, one thing that is really important to note is that all of the attacks involving the Mirage Blades, with the exception of the first one where you just mash the right mouse button, the Mirage Blade button, all of these attacks, like Spiral Blades, Storm Blades, Blistering Blades, and Heavy Rain Blades, each of these attacks takes 1 bar of your double trigger energy, so that's kind of worth noting. But it doesn't really matter because the DT regenerates almost immediately with Vergil, because he's so OP. Now, another thing that I really think is kind of worth noting is that the Mirage Blade attacks won't really take effect unless, until you've released the Mirage Blade button, or in my case, the right mouse button. So as you can see here, I am pressing down, or well, back plus Mirage Blade button, or S plus right mouse button, and the Mirage Blades have appeared, the Storm Blades have appeared around the enemy, but it's not until I've let go, of the Mirage Blade button that they actually launch the enemy into the air. It's the exact same thing with the Blistering Blades. Like, only when I let go of the right mouse button, or well, the Mirage Blade button, do they actually start hitting the enemy. And it's the exact same thing with the Heavy Rain Blades. So that is something that is really important to mention. And that's about it for the Mirage Blades. So now we have Vergil's trick actions. So Vergil, unlike Dante, doesn't really have styles. He doesn't have Trickster or Swordmaster, Royal Guard, Gunslinger, any of that. He doesn't have to switch to Trickster to use trick moves. So the trick button in my case is E, and there are a couple of trick moves that you can use. I'll go over the basic one that really isn't all that important. You have Trick Dodge. This is essentially a dodge, so you press left plus trig button, or right plus trig button, or forward plus trig button, or down plus trig button. So it's like A plus E, D plus E, W plus E, S plus E, and Vergil will dodge this attack. It looks kind of cool when you time this dodge. It looks like Ultra Instinct, because, you'll get this slow motion effect that looks really, really dope. So that's Trick Dodge. Now we got Trick Up, which is basically just pressing the trig button, or in my case, pressing E. You don't lock on, though, so you got to make sure you're not locking on. This applies to Trick Dodge as well, so you don't lock on. In other words, Trick Dodge and Trick Up don't require any lock on. So you just press E, and Vergil will basically propel himself into the air. You can also do this while you're in midair, so you can jump and press E, or well, the trig button, and Vergil will do Trick Up. It basically acts as his double jump, because Vergil doesn't really have a double jump. So yeah, he doesn't have air hike like Dante and Nero. So that's Trick Up. Now we have arguably one of Vergil's most indispensable moves, Air Trick. You lock on and you press the trig button, or in my case, you press Shift and E. Now let me explain how Air Trick really works. It's essentially a teleport, as you can see. But let me explain exactly, some of the subtleties and intricacies regarding this move. Though it's not really intricate, it's kind of as basic as it gets, but alright, so this is how it works. When you press lock on plus trig button, or shift plus E in my case, when you use Air Trick, what's going to happen is Vergil will throw this Mirage Blade at the enemy. And once the Mirage Blade has been embedded into the enemy, Vergil will teleport to it. This kind of works like Minato's Flying Raijin, where he basically throws a kunai at you, and then he teleports to said kunai. So that's how this works. He throws a Mirage Blade, and once the Mirage Blade hits the enemy, he teleports to the enemy. But here's the thing. You can only teleport from a certain distance. So this is what I mean. There's a distance limit. So if you're too far away from the enemy, like as you can see here, I'm pressing Shift plus E. I'm trying to use air trick, but Vergil can teleport. He's throwing the Mirage Blade, but the enemy is too far away for the Mirage Blade to embed itself. So if the Mirage Blade doesn't embed itself into the enemy, Vergil can teleport, and the Mirage Blade doesn't have infinite range, so that's how it works. You have to close in on the enemy before you can use air trick and teleport. So you gotta make sure the Mirage Blade has been embedded into the enemy. You gotta close in. But once the Mirage Blade has been embedded into the enemy, you can teleport to the enemy from literally any distance, no matter how far away you are. As you can see here, I am basically, too far away from the enemy. I'm pressing air trick, I'm trying to use it, but it's simply Vergil isn't teleporting, I'm too far away. Now I've closed in, I've closed the gap, I'm not as far away from the enemy as I used to be, and now air trick works. The Mirage Blade has embedded itself into the enemy, and Vergil can teleport. But now that the Mirage Blade is embedded into the enemy, I can teleport to the enemy from any distance, no matter how far away I am. Even from the other side of the map, it doesn't matter. Once the Mirage Blade has been embedded into the enemy, you can teleport from any distance. However, there is a time limit because after a certain period of time, the Mirage Blade will crack and you will have to embed another Mirage Blade into the enemy. This is really easy though, believe me. I mean, come on, gaining distance in this game, or, closing distance, like closing in, that is not a problem at all. So that's just something I wanted to mention regarding air trick, or, well, the teleport. And this also kind of reminds me of Minato's second tilt, Edo Minato, where he basically he marks you with the Flying Raijin tag, and then he can teleport to you anytime he wants from any distance, as long as the tag is on you. But after a certain period of time, the tag will basically fade away, and he won't be able to teleport unless he basically marks you again. That's pretty much how air trick works. Now we have trig down, which you can also do on the ground and in midair. It's essentially a backdash, so when you're on the ground, it's a backdash, but when you're in midair, Vergil will descend to the ground from the air with a slight backdash. So that's what happens here. And you use this move by locking on and pressing back plus forward plus trig button. Or in my case, I lock on with shift and I press S plus W plus E. But of course, the same thing applies. So if I'm on the left side, for example, I'm going to press left plus right plus trig button, or A plus D plus E. So you know how this whole thing works. I'm not going to explain it again. So yeah, that is trig down. It's another indispensable move. Another thing that I really want to mention before I start talking about Vergil's melee weapons is Strafe. So Strafe is essentially a side dash. So the way you do the side dash is, after every hit that Vergil does with any weapon, you press right or left plus jump. So I hit the enemy, I press the attack button or the left mouse button, and immediately after pressing it, I press D plus space, or A plus space. So right plus jump, left plus jump. So that's how this whole thing works. You can see this in the Streak combo and the Void combo. I don't use it a lot in combos, but, that's simply how it is. It's a pretty fun move, really. So that's Strafe. And now, finally, we can talk about Vergil's melee weapons. So now we got Vergil's melee weapons. And you might find this odd, but I'm not going to be doing this weapon by weapon. I'm going to be doing this according to the attack types that Vergil has. So just like Dante and Nero, Vergil has a variety, an assortment of different types of attacks. He's got ground combos, air combos, moves that require you to hold the attack button and then release it. He's got launchers, he's got dashing attacks, he's got drop down attacks. Everything but the kitchen sink, the whole 9 yards. So the way I'm going to be explaining this is I'm going to start talking about the launchers, because, I don't know, I just feel like it. So, launching attacks are basically attacks that usually require you to press If you're facing the enemy, if the enemy is in front of you, the camera is straight like this, you press back plus attack button, or in my case, S plus left mouse button. So this is how it works. But as you already know, it all depends on the side. So let's take the left side as your default side, because I think it just looks better, okay? So when you're on the left side and you want to do a launching attack, you press left plus attack button, or A plus left mouse button. Now, if you have the Yamato equipped and you're on the left side on the ground and you press left plus attack button, or A plus left mouse button, that is /1. If you press left and you hold the attack button, that is /2. If you have the Mirage Edge equipped and you press left plus attack button, that is high time 1. If you press left and you hold the attack button, that is high time 2. As you can see, it's kind of the same with the Yamato and with the Mirage Edge. It's kind of the same effect. If you press left plus attack button, Vergil will only launch the enemy into the air with his sword. But if you hold the attack button, he will also launch himself into the air alongside the enemy. So that's how it works. If you press left plus attack button with Beowulf and you're on the left side, that is Beast Uppercut. If you press left and you hold the attack button, that is Rising Dragon, and Vergil will launch himself into the air as well. If you press left and you hold the attack button for a very long time, that is Dragon Breaker. It packs a huge punch. You can charge it twice, thrice, depending on your concentration, and, well, you, essentially. So that's how these launching attacks work. Usually it's left plus attack button when you're on the left side. But when you're on the right side, it is right plus attack button. When you're basically, behind the enemy, it is forward plus attack button. And when the enemy is in front of you, like this, it is back plus attack button, or S plus left mouse button. So that's how it works. Alright, now we got dashing attacks, and as the name suggests, these are attacks where Vergil dashes at the enemy and hits them. If you're on the left side, like I said, we're taking the left side as the default side, as if this was a fighting game. So, we basically do dashing attacks if we're on the left side by pressing right plus attack button. So if you're on the left side on the ground with the Yamato equipped and you press right plus attack button, or D plus left mouse button in my case, that is rapid slash, and Vergil will basically dash through the enemy like this. If you press right and you hold the attack button, or D, and hold the left mouse button, Vergil will use Rising Star. And this isn't really a dash attack. I mean, it is. It's a dash attack that turns into a launcher. Vergil does these 2 hits. So it's both a dashing attack and a launcher, depending on whether or not you're going to hold the attack button. If you don't hold it, you get Rapid Slash. If you hold it, you get Rising Star. So that's what happens with the Yamato. If you have the Mirage Edge equipped and you're on the left side on the ground and you press right plus attack button, that is Stinger. And Vergil will, well, sting the enemy. He'll stab them like this. If you do this move in the air, you'll do Air Stinger. Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious. And if you are on the ground and you press right and you hold the attack button and then you keep mashing it, you will get Million Stab, where Vergil does this barrage of stabs, of, slashes essentially. Well, no, they're actually stabs, which is why it's called Million Stab. So you press right and you hold the attack button and you keep mashing it, and you can mash this move for like 7 seconds. It's really, really long. You can release it anytime you want, so yeah. But with Beowulf, you don't exactly have a dashing attack. When you're on the left side on the ground with Beowulf and you press right plus attack button, or D plus left mouse button, you get Lunar Phase. This crescent kick, like spin, this barrage of kicks. And it's not really a dashing attack, it's just a move. And you can also do this move in midair, and it's the exact same thing. It's a pretty cool move. One of my favorites now that I think about it, so yeah. These are dashing attacks. If you're on the left side, like I said, it's right plus attack button. But if you're on the right side, it is left plus attack button, or A plus left mouse button. And yeah, I don't need to explain. If the enemy is in front of you, it's forward plus attack button. And if you're behind them, it's back plus attack button. So yeah. Alright, now we have back to forward moves, which you execute by pressing back plus forward plus attack button if the enemy is in front of you. So if I have the Yamato equipped and the enemy is in front of me like this, I'm facing them like this. If I have the Yamato equipped and I press back plus forward plus attack button, or S plus W plus left mouse button in my case, that is Void Slash. And Vergil will do this slash that will kind of slow the enemy, or will freeze them in time, and then when Vergil sheathes his sword, they'll explode, right? The slash will kind of explode, and it kind of works like a universal pull. It pulls the enemy towards you, alright? So it's one of the coolest moves in the game, really. It's pretty awesome. Now, if you use back plus forward plus attack button with Beowulf, or S plus W plus left mouse button, you will use kick 13, which is this barrage of kicks that Vergil can do. Now, if you press back plus forward and you hold the attack button with Beowulf, Vergil will do kick 13, but he will follow it up with these 2 additional kicks that will launch the enemy into the air. So this kind of works like a launcher. And these last 2 hits, it used to be a separate move back in DMC3. It used to be called Rising Sun. But yeah, they decided to make it a part of this move. So that's kick 13. And if you press back plus forward plus attack button with the Mirage Edge, that is drive. And Vergil will do this shockwave, with his swords, this projectile attack with his Mirage Edge. And that's drive, right? But if you press back plus forward plus attack button, and then you press the attack button again, and you hold it, you charge it, Vergil will use overdrive, and then this 3rd additional beam, or whatever you want to call it, this shockwave, will just hit the enemy, and it'll kind of dig into them. You can charge it once, twice, thrice, you don't have to charge it at all, but yeah, that's basically how this move works. That is overdrive. And the longer you charge it, the longer it will last. And again, like I said, you can use these moves differently. Like if if the enemy is in front of you, it's back plus forward plus attack button, or S plus W plus left mouse button. If you are behind the enemy like this, it's the reverse. It's forward plus back plus attack button, or W plus S plus left mouse button. If you're on the left, it's left plus right plus attack button, or A plus D plus left mouse button. And if you're on the right side, it is right plus left plus attack button, or D plus A plus left mouse button. So that's how this whole thing works. Now we've got drop-down attacks. And as the name suggests, I call them this. These are attacks that Vergil does in the air that basically cause him to pin the enemy to the ground, or, if they're already on the ground, he just descends from the air to the ground. So, we got aerial cleave with the Yamato. And let me explain. So if you're on the left side in midair, and you have the Yamato equipped, you press left plus attack button, and you will use aerial cleave, which is this attack where Vergil basically hits the enemy, and it'll cause this bounce back effect, where the enemy bounces back into the air as soon as they hit the ground. So that's essentially how this move works. It's pretty cool, pretty useful. If you do this with the Mirage Edge, and if you're on the in midair, and you press the attack button, not a left plus attack button, just the attack button, you don't even have to lock on. You just press the attack button with the Mirage Edge in midair. That is Helmbreaker, and Vergil will hit the enemy with his Mirage Edge, and they'll kind of fly away. They'll gain some distance. So that's how Helmbreaker works. Now we have, with Beowulf, we have Starfall. It's the same thing as with Helmbreaker. You just press the attack button while in midair. You don't have to lock on. And Vergil will use this kick that will basically hit the enemy. So that's it. Now we have moves that require Vergil to hold the attack button and then release it. So with the Yamato, you press and hold the attack button and then you release it. It doesn't matter if it's on the ground or in midair, you will use a judgment cut, a regular one. I will explain more about this mechanic later. It is incredibly important. For now, all you need to know is that when you press and hold the attack button until your Yamato starts glowing, and then you release the attack button, you get a judgment cut. You can do it on the ground, you can do it in midair. If you press and hold the attack button with the Mirage Edge until it starts glowing, and then you release the attack button, you will use Round Trip, which is this move where the Mirage Edge basically starts spinning and it cuts the enemy up. And it lasts for quite a long period of time, really. Now, what's important about this move is that you can call the Mirage Edge back to your position by pressing the attack button if you have the Mirage Edge equipped. So it kind of works like a boomerang. If the Mirage Edge, if Round Trip is active and it's, spinning and it's cutting the enemy up, if you want it to deactivate itself and go back to your position, you just press the attack button while you have the Mirage Edge equipped. But you can just, let it spin and it will eventually go back to your position anyway. Now, what's really important about Round Trip is that once you throw the Round Trip, right? Like, once you press the attack button, you hold it, and then you release it, and the Round Trip comes out, you're not going to be able to use the Mirage Edge. You can use the Yamato. You can use any move with the Yamato, you can use any move with Beowulf, but if you try to use any move with the Mirage Edge, if you press the attack button, the Mirage Edge will simply go back to your position, because obviously you don't have the Mirage Edge with you. It's basically too busy cutting the enemy up, so if you want to use it, you got to call it back to your position. So if you have Round Trip if you have Round Trip active, like I said, and you press the attack button, it will go back to Vergil, like a boomerang. So that's it for the Mirage Edge, and now we got Beowulf. If you press and hold the attack button with Beowulf when you're on the ground, well, he's not really going to do anything, he's just going to charge his moves, really. So what I mean by that is you can charge Beowulf up to 3 times, depending on your concentration gauge. If your concentration is level 2, you can charge Beowulf up to 3 times. But if it's below level 2, you can only charge it twice. So if you press and hold the attack button, Vergil will just charge his Beowulf. You can charge any hit with Beowulf for Combo A and Combo B, as well as Dragon Breaker and, Rising Dragon. So that's really important. Another thing that I want to mention regarding Beowulf is that if you press space, if you jump with Beowulf equipped, you will do this move called Flush, which can actually damage or even kill enemies. I've seen people kill enemies with this, like bosses. You just jump, and it's a specific kind of jump, I guess. You have these particles, and it kind of damages enemies, so I think that's kind of worth noting. Vergil also has 2 air combos, both with the Yamato. He has Aerial Rave 1, where you just mash the attack button about 3 to 4 times, but you can mash it like a maniac, it doesn't matter. So you just mash the attack button, and Vergil will do these 3 hits with the Yamato in the air. You also have Aerial Rave 2, where Vergil does this roulette spin, and then he pins the enemy to the ground. And the way you do this is you press the attack button twice, like 1, 2, then you make a pause, and then you keep mashing the attack button like a maniac until Vergil pins the enemy to the ground. So that is Aerial Rave 2, like with this roulette spin. So that's it for Vergil's air combos. Now we have ultimates, or super moves, or whatever you want to call them. So Vergil has an ultimate attack, or an ultimate move, for each of his weapons. So the way you do these ultimates is you lock on, you press shift, which I don't really think I need to mention. You gotta lock on for any move, so I'm not gonna include that. So you press forward plus trig button plus attack button. Or in my case, you press W, E, left mouse button. So it's W plus E plus left mouse button. Forward plus trig button plus attack button. Now, with the Yamato, Vergil will do Judgment Cut End, his most iconic move. Probably the best move, really. So, that's Judgment Cut End. He charges his Yamato, and he cuts the enemy up. Basically, he's so fast, he basically cuts through time and space. like through the dimension, and then he sheathes his sword, and the enemies don't feel the impact until he does that. It's an iconic move, really. With Beowulf, he has Hell on Earth, where he basically charges his Beowulf, and then he hits the ground, and he hits the enemy with this insane shockwave. I think this move deals the most damage in the game if you exclude Dragon Breaker and Sin DT. So yeah. And finally, with the Mirage Edge, you have Deep Stinger, which is this, it's kind of the same thing as Dante's Sin Stinger in his Sindal trigger. So he basically does this, spinning barrage of slashes with the Mirage Edge and the Yamato, and then he hits the enemy like this. You can actually steer the Mirage Edge, you can steer this move, so you can just lock on and let it do its thing, but you can also just press left, right to basically steer it in the direction you want, so that's how this whole thing works. That's Deep Stinger. Now, I think it's really important to mention how these ultimates really work. So they only work, the prerequisite for using, well, the requirement for using them is you gotta have a full Sin double trigger gauge, and your concentration level has to be level 2. So it has to be over this bar, this thingy here. So here's how this works. If you use any of these ultimates in Sin double trigger, if the concentration level is 2, you can spam up to 4 ultimates. So you're in Sin DT, your concentration level is 2, and you are trying to use Hell on Earth, with Beowulf. You're trying to use all these ultimates. As you can see here, every time I use an ultimate, the Sin DT bar kind of depletes. But I can do it 4 times in a row if I so desire. So this is why I recommend using this move, using all of these ultimates only when you're in Sin DT, because you can do them 4 times if you want to. For bosses, this can deal an insane amount of damage. But if you use these ultimates outside of your Sin double trigger, not only do they deal less damage, but they deplete your entire Sin double trigger gauge. So look at this, I'm outside of my Sin DT, I'm not in my Sin DT, and I'm using Judgment Cut End with the Yamato, and boom, as you can see, the whole Sin double trigger gauge has been depleted after this one move. But if I use this move in Sin double trigger, it'll just, deplete the Sin DT bar gauge a little, and I'll be able to use it 3 more times if I want to, or I can just not do it. So I do not recommend using these ultimates outside of your Sin double trigger. You can do it in combos. Combos are different because, there's special requirements here. You're in the void, you got infinite things. It's all infinite, but in, mid-gameplay, I do not recommend that. So, yeah. So, obviously, Vergil also has normal ground combos. Now, you might find it odd that this wasn't the first thing I would talk about, but there's a reason for it. I felt like, the directional moves were a lot more important to get out of the way first. So, yeah, Vergil has normal ground combos with the Yamato, with the Mirage Edge, and with Beowulf. So, with the Yamato, you have Yamato Combo A, which is this 5-hit combo. You mash the attack button as many times as you want if you have the Yamato equipped on the ground. So you can mash it 6 times, 7 times, 10 times, 20 times, doesn't really matter. Next, we got Yamato Combo B, which is attack button, pause, attack button. So you press the attack button twice, you make a slight pause, and then you press the attack button a 3rd time. And when Vergil does this final hit with the Yamato, this one Mirage Blade will embed itself into the enemy, and once Vergil has finished sheathing his sword, this Mirage Blade will cause the enemy to get launched into the air. So when Vergil sheathes his sword, the enemy basically gets launched into the air. So that's Yamato Combo B. Yamato Combo C is you do the first 4 hits with the Yamato, then you make a slight pause, and then you keep mashing the attack button like a maniac, and Vergil will do this barrage of slashes, which will send the enemy flying. So that's Yamato Combo C. With Beowulf, we have 2 combos. So we have Beowulf Combo A, which is this 3 to 4 hit combo. You just mash the attack button 4 to 5 times. I don't know, as many times as you want, really. So, no pauses. And we've also got Beowulf Combo B, which is attack button, pause, attack button. So you do the first 2 hits, attack button, then you make a slight pause, and then you keep mashing the attack button. You can do it like that. Like I said, all of Beowulf's hits can be charged up to 3 times, depending on your concentration. If your concentration level is 2, like I said, you can charge it 3 times. If it's below 2, you can charge it only twice. But yeah, you can charge every individual hit of Beowulf Combo A and Combo B, and you can also charge, Rising Dragon or, Dragon Breaker up to 3 times. So that's how this works. But you can't charge, Kick 13 or Lunar Phase or Starfall or anything like that. The Mirage Edge also has 2 combos. So we got Mirage Edge Combo A, which is this. You can press the attack button 3 times slowly, like this, with these slight pauses, or you can mash the hell out of it like a maniac, which is what I always recommend. Mirage Edge Combo B is this move. It's kind of the same for the first few hits. So you just mash the attack button until this happens, and then you make a slightly lengthy pause, and then you press the attack button again, and you keep mashing it. So Vergil will do this X slash, and then he'll keep cutting the enemy up, and then he'll do this pirouette, this, slashing circle, this crescent slash, basically. So yeah, so that's Mirage Edge Combo B. Again, you can do this slowly with some slight pauses in between. You can mash like a maniac. It doesn't really matter as long as you know when to make that pause, so that's basically it. Now, these moves all look better if your concentration level is 2. Speaking of which, we need to talk about concentration, because it's a really, really important mechanic that is exclusive to Vergil, and has been since DMC4. So, the concentration meter, or the motivation meter as everyone calls it, is this blue, well, it's not really blue, it's only blue if you fill it up, but it's this kind of, it's kind of shaped like Vergil's Sindel Trigger chest, his Sindel Trigger's chest. But you got this V, and you have 3 concentration levels. You have level 0, which is, empty. You got level 1, which is up until, it's kind of like this. And then you have level 2, which is, level 2 concentration. You see this little thingy right here on the concentration meter? Yeah, if this blue energy, if the meter goes but beyond that, that means your concentration level is 2. And when you have concentration level 2, you can use those ultimates. That's kind of the most important thing. And you can also charge Beowulf attacks up to 3 times. But here's how concentration actually works and why it's so important. So concentration builds up if you don't move around a lot and if you land hits. So if you're around enemies, right, and you're static, you're not moving, you build up concentration that way. The more you move around enemies, the more you will lose concentration. It also builds up the more hits you land. So if you land hits, you gain concentration. But if you miss hits, if you keep hitting the air, that's how you lose concentration. And you will lose concentration significantly if you get hit. It'll almost go down to 0. So don't get hit. Don't hit the air. Don't move around a lot. Just be static when you have to. Land hits, just land hits. Also, if you dodge moves with trick dodge in the right time, when you do that Ultra Instinct thing, that will give you a lot of concentration. So, yeah. Now, basically what happens with concentration is your attacks get flashier. They deal more damage, and they have more range. When I say that your attacks get flashier, I mean you literally get more particles. So when using the Yamato, you can see that Vergil has these after images after every slash. If your concentration is level 2, but if your concentration is level 0, you don't have these after images. Also, you can see Yamato combo C, the slash barrage is literally invisible, but you can clearly see the slashes are very, full of volume and very visible when your concentration is level 2. It's kind of the same with the Mirage Edge, with the attacks that involve that. Basically, the Mirage Edge has these, it's kind of like this mist, this demonic energy. You can see that it's basically like this smoke every time you land an attack. And it's kind of like the spiritual aura. But if your concentration level is low, you won't have this. It's not going to look as flashy. And with Beowulf, it's the same. Your attacks are kind of, less flashy. I really don't know how to explain this any better. But that's how this whole thing works. Concentration makes your attacks way flashier. They deal more damage. And I said how they give you more range. And let me explain. So in the urban combo, right, you have this instance where Vergil uses Rising Star. And then after the second hit of Rising Star, he immediately uses Trig Down, and then he uses upper/2 with the Yamato, right? Now, if your concentration level is 0, after using Rising Star and using Trig Down, when he uses upper/, Vergil will basically propel himself into the air, he will launch himself into the air, but he will not hit the enemy with upper/2. But if your concentration level is, above 0, if it's 2, for example, when Vergil uses upper/, the upper/ will launch the enemy into the air, and the combo will not work. So as you can see, not only is the slash invisible, it literally has less range when your concentration is level 0. But when it's level 2, not only can you clearly see the blue slash and the effects, but it also gives you more range. So that's kind of important. So on concentration level 0, when Vergil does upper/2, it doesn't hit the enemy. But when he does it with max concentration, it hits the enemy. So yeah. Alright, so now we got Vergil's Sin Double Trigger mechanic, or transformation, awakening, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to skip talking about the regular double trigger, because in Vergil's case, that's the Doppelganger, and I'm going to be talking about that later. So, you have this Sin Double Trigger gauge, and the way to fill up this gauge is you sacrifice your double trigger energy. So, basically, you press and hold F, which is in my case the double trigger button. So you press and hold the double trigger button, and you sacrifice your double trigger energy to fill up your Sin Double Trigger gauge. And once the Sin Double Trigger gauge is full, basically, you just press and hold the double trigger button again, and you hold it for less than a second, really, and you release it. So you hold it and then you release it. And Vergil will basically go into a Sin Double Trigger. He's gonna, he's gonna transform, bro. He's forming. So this is called accumulate. Just holding the double trigger button for less than a second and then going into your Sin Double Trigger form. With Dante's Sin Double Trigger, it takes about 2 seconds to accumulate the Sin Double Trigger energy, but for Vergil, it's a lot, shorter. So that's pretty cool. Now, when you go into your Sin DT on the ground, the transformation can basically launch enemies into the air, and it can also damage them. Sometimes, if they're low on health, it can even kill them, so yeah. Now, the Sin Double Trigger has a healing factor, just like Dante's regular Double Trigger. But here's how it works. The Sin Double Trigger, in Vergil's case, lasts for about 22 seconds if you don't deactivate it. But you can deactivate the Sin Double Trigger at any point, really. But if you let it, run out without deactivating it, it's going to last for 22 seconds, give or take. So that's how it works. Now, the thing about this is, if you're low on health and you go into your Sin DT and you wait for it to run out, you wait the full 22 seconds, Vergil will he will replenish 2 bars of health. Only 2 bars of health in 22 seconds. Whereas Dante's regular double trigger, not only does it last for 30 seconds instead of 22, but it replenishes not 2, but 7 bars of health. That is a significant upgrade. You know, it really goes in Dante's favor. But it doesn't matter because Vergil Sin DT is incredibly cool, and I'll explain why right now. So, like I said, you know, even though the healing factor isn't really as effective, the good thing about Vergil Sin DT is that you can deactivate it at any point, whereas Dante's Sin DT cannot be deactivated, only when you're using quadruple S and you have this 4-second window or something. So that's kind of worth noting. However, you know, there is kind of this window while you're in Sin DT. So you accumulate the energy and you go into your Sin DT, and you have about, I don't know, 4 seconds before the Sin DT gauge starts depleting. So that's kind of worth noting. So like I said, if you go into your Sin DT and you don't deactivate it, you know, you deactivate it after the first 4 seconds have passed, you can reactivate it immediately without this SDT gauge depleting. So that's really, really useful. That's pretty goddamn cool. So another thing that's really important to note is that a lot of moves get enhanced in your Sin double trigger. They usually get an additional hit or something. So let's go over some of the moves, or well, all of the moves that get enhanced. So, Yamato Combo A. As you can see, this is the base Yamato Combo A, you know, these 5 hits. But in your Sin DT, Yamato Combo A gets these 3 amazing hits that are so impactful and so cool, and they deal so much damage. So, that's really important, you know. Yamato Combo A gets a significant boost. This is base Yamato Combo B. But in Sin DT, Vergil does this additional hit, this additional flip with his Yamato, and then he basically sheathes his sword. Also, when Vergil sheathes his sword after Yamato Combo B in his Sin DT, there will be 3 or 4 Mirage blades that will embed themselves into the enemy, and once Vergil sheathes his sword, the enemy will be launched way higher than in his base form, so that's kind of worth noting. Moving on, Yamato Combo C. This is identical, the only difference is that the final hit provides more knockback, meaning that the enemy will be sent flying way, like he gets blown away. So that's kind of, I guess that's the only difference worth noting for Yamato Combo C. Beowulf Combo A in base form is kind of lame, but in Sin DT you get this additional kick and you can charge it, and it just looks really, really like just blindingly fast, so, and strong. And in Beowulf, for Beowulf Combo B, Vergil does this additional hit, which is a Tetsu Zanko. It's a move from Street Fighter. It appears in a lot of games. You know, it appears in Bayonetta. It appears even in Naruto Storm 4. A lot of characters use it. So it's like from this Chinese martial art. You know, I'm not going to talk about that right now. But he does this Tetsu Zanko. He spreads his wings, and it's just really, really cool. It's actually probably one of the coolest moves in the game because it's the only move that Vergil uses that actually, where you can actually see his wings in his Sin DT. Well, that he spreads his wings. Moving on, we got Mirage Edge Combo A. Same thing, the only difference is Vergil does this additional stab. So he doesn't do 1 stab, he does 2 stabs. Mirage Edge Combo B is identical, except that Vergil really cuts the enemy up very fast. He cuts them up way faster, and the pirouette, the circle thingy, it's more dense. It's thicker in a way. It looks cooler. So yeah, and he does more spins. Basically, that's kind of important. So that is Mirage Edge Combo B. Now we got Rapid Slash. This move really gets a significant boost. It gets really amped. You can do Rapid Slash when you're on the left side by pressing right plus attack button, and when you're on the right side, it is left plus attack button. Well, you know, you can't really string these together, but in Sin DT, you can use Rapid Slash infinitely. And I mean it, you can literally do this all day. You just press right plus attack button, left plus attack button, right plus attack button, left plus attack button, right plus left, right, left, you know. And you can do this infinitely, just slashing the enemy up. And when you decide to stop, and when Vergil sheathes his sword, this Mirage Blade will embed itself into the enemy, and it will launch the enemy into the air. So this is a really big boost for Rapid Slash. It's really fun to use. Moving on, we've got Starfall. Now, Starfall in base is just this one kick, but in Sin DT, when Vergil does Starfall, and you hold the attack button while you're using Starfall, he will do this additional inverted kick. It's kind of like a zigzag. So he just does it like this, like boop, 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 boop. You know, like that's basically all you need to know. I make use of this in the urban combo. So, yeah. Another move that gets a boost in Sin DT is Kick 13, because your regular Kick 13 in base form is a lot shorter. Kick 13 in Sin DT is longer, you have more kicks, so that's kind of worth noting. Dragon Breaker is usually, in base form, even when you charge it 3 times, Vergil only does 2 hits, but in Sin DT, he does 3 hits. So Dragon Breaker, you know, you have these 3 hits, it's kind of a significant boost, so yeah. Moving on, we got Lunar Phase. The only difference is, instead of doing 5 hits, he does 10, so it lasts a bit longer, and I guess it looks a little thicker in a way. Next, we got Stinger and Air Stinger. So when Vergil uses Stinger, it's just this, and Air Stinger is the same. He just stings, he just stabs the enemy, and they get sent flying. But when you use, you know, Stinger and Air Stinger and Sin DT, Vergil kind of digs into the enemy, and you can see this particle. It's a very, like, oomph, you know, have this oomph effect. So he deals a lot more damage, and it looks cooler, and he kind of digs into the enemy. He kind of moves with them. So, yeah. Moving on, we gotta talk about Vergil's movement in Sin DT. So you know how trig down is back plus forward plus trick action, right? Or in my case, S plus W plus E. Well, in your Sin DT, it's simply S plus space, or well, down plus jump. So you don't have to press down plus up plus trig button. You just press down plus jump, or back plus jump. That's essentially it. And you can spam it infinitely, basically. You just do these back dashes by pressing back plus jump. Not back plus forward plus trick, but just back plus jump. And now, remember the strafe thing I talked to you about? The, you know, the side dash that you can do after every hit with every weapon, like Beowulf or something? You press the attack button and then you press right plus jump, or left plus jump. Yeah, well, that is Vergil's default movement in Sin DT. So if you press left plus jump, or right plus jump, he will do this side dash without you having to use any hit. In base form, you can only do this strafe, the side dash, if Vergil, you know, hits the enemy. But here, you don't have to hit the enemy. He can do it like left, right. You know, left plus, you know, left plus jump, right plus jump, left plus jump, right plus jump, or A plus space, D plus space. So, yeah. Now I think I really gotta mention enemy step, because this is another mechanic that isn't really exclusive to Vergil. It applies to Dante and Nero as well, and it's kind of pivotal. So enemy step is essentially, by all means, a jump cancel. Enemy step is essentially just jumping while you're next to the enemy. And it's kind of like this Mario jump, you know? Like you just jump like this, and the enemy's head, you can bop the enemy's head like this. So only when you're close to the enemy, right? You gotta know when to jump. Now, you can use this to cancel all of your aerial attacks. So you can see here, I'm pressing the attack button and then I'm jumping. So it's like attack button, jump, attack button, jump. I'm canceling my Yamato slashes in the air. And here you can see that I'm canceling Lunar Phase while in the air. And I'm doing this by jumping. I jump and then I use the move. I jump and then I use the move. I jump and then I press the attack button. So that is how this whole thing works. That is enemy step, and it is incredibly important. You can see the enemy step, like some of the instances where I use it. Just some of the most basic ones are, for example, in the Wreckage combo and the Sanctuary combo, you have this setup where I use Lunar Phase, and then I enemy step, I jump cancel the Lunar Phase into Starfall. So I press right plus attack button, I do Lunar Phase, and then I cancel it by pressing jump, and then I press the attack button to do Starfall. So that's how you do it. You cancel the move by jumping. It's a jump cancel. That's what enemy step really is. And, you know, this is one instance. Now, what would have happened had I not pressed space, had I not jumped? I simply would not have been able to do Starfall, because in that case, you gotta wait for Vergil to do the entirety of Lunar Phase, and only when he's done can you use Starfall. But by that time, it would have been too late. So, this is what you have to cancel you gotta cancel Lunar Phase so that you can immediately follow it up with Starfall. This is another instance from the Graveyard combo and the Blue combo. I basically use Helmbreaker with the Mirage Edge, and then, so I basically press the attack button, because that's Helmbreaker. I press the attack button, and then I jump, and I press right plus attack button. So I jump cancel the Helmbreaker into Air Stinger. Now, had I not done that, Vergil would have simply used Helmbreaker, and he would have pinned the enemy to the ground. So that is why you gotta basically jump cancel your move. You cancel the Helmbreaker, you don't do the full move because you jump. That's how enemy step works. It's essentially a jump cancel, and that's really important to know. Here you can see, this is an instance from the Moist combo, right? So I use Air Stinger, and then I jump cancel the Air Stinger into Helmbreaker, right? Now, had I not done that, as you can see here, basically, here I do Air Stinger, which is right plus attack button, and then I'm pressing the attack button, but Vergil doesn't immediately use Helmbreaker. You have these recovery frames, so he doesn't follow it up immediately, you know? But here, I press right plus attack button, and I use Air Stinger, and while the enemy is still close to me, I press jump, and enemy step, I jump cancel my Air Stinger, and I can immediately use Helmbreaker to descend to the ground way faster. You don't have this, you have these recovery frames if you don't enemy step, and you won't be able to use Helmbreaker immediately. But this way, if you jump cancel it, you immediately use Helmbreaker because you've essentially canceled your Air Stinger, even though it worked. But you gotta know, for this instance in particular, the window is kind of strict. You gotta know exactly when to cancel. Because if you wait too long, you know, you use Air Stinger and the enemy is already too far away from you, and you press jump, nothing's gonna happen. Enemy step only works when the enemy is close to you. So that's really important. Alright, so now we gotta talk about Vergil's taunts. And Vergil's got a myriad of very, very cool and creative taunts. But in this video, I'm going to be focusing only on the technical ones. What I mean by that is I'm going to be talking about taunts that can either, you know, damage the enemy or do something like that. So we got the lock-on taunt. Just to preface this, as you already know, my taunt button is R. So I press R to taunt. So the lock-on taunt is lock-on plus taunt, obviously. So shift plus R. And Vergil basically says, have you decided which one of you will die first? And he embeds this Mirage Blade into the enemy that he's locked onto, and this Mirage Blade launches the enemy into the air. So that's his lock-on taunt. Not much more to say about that. He's also got his air taunt. So if you taunt in the air, what's going to happen is he will throw these 3 Mirage Blades at the enemy that will propel the enemy into the air. So these Mirage Blades, they basically launch the enemy into the air. Now, if your rank is S, this taunt changes. Instead of using these 3 Mirage Blades, he will do this small judgment cut thingy. It's like this DMC3 aerial rave. And this will also keep the enemy suspended, as you can see. But yeah, that's basically what happens when you use this taunt in the air and your rank is S. But only with the Yamato or the Mirage Edge. So if your rank is S or higher and you're in the air and you use this taunt with Beowulf, even though your rank is S, you'll still do the regular air taunt with the 3 Mirage Blades. But if you have the Mirage Edge equipped or the Yamato and your rank is S, you will do this different taunt, the S rank one. But if you have Beowulf equipped, it doesn't matter what your rank is, you will do the regular 3 Mirage Blades. So yeah. Moving on, we also have the Let's Have Some Fun taunt. This is his triple S Smokin' Sexy style taunt, one of the 2 that he has. And this is really important because not only is it cool by default, but it can damage enemies and it can even launch them into the air. You can see this in the street combo, or well, the infamous, I am the storm that is approaching combo that everyone and their mother knows about, and the ice combo. So as you can see, the enemy falls directly onto Vergil's mini Mirage blade that he's spinning around his finger, and they get launched into the air. So this taunt can actually damage enemies, and not to mention it is incredibly, incredibly stylish in combos. Alright, we have the Bloody Palace taunt as well. You just press CTRL plus R. CTRL is the button I use for switching targets. So yeah. So CTRL plus R, and Vergil says, you think to make a fool of me? And it takes quite a long time, but once he does this slash, it basically freezes the enemy in time and space. And once he sheathes his sword, the enemy gets hit, basically, and it deals a really, really insane amount of damage, like 2,000 or 1,000 damage points. So, yeah. Like you can see here, the Fury, this looks absolutely amazing. Basically, I did this slash, and I slashed the Fury as soon as it almost hit me, and I basically slashed it. So I froze it in time and space. This is just really, really cool. I've seen some insane instances of people using this taunt in very, very creative ways. So yeah. We've also got Vergil's X Provocation taunt. You hold CTRL, or the button you use for switching targets, and you press the taunt button. So Vergil's Doppelganger dances with him, and Vergil acts all embarrassed and flustered and all that his, embarrassing inner self is acting this way or whatever, and he slashes him. By the way, this slash can also damage enemies around you, so yeah, it's pretty fun. One thing that we also got to talk about is that Vergil does not react to commands while he's taunting. You can see here I'm pressing the attack button, I'm pressing all these things, but Vergil is simply too busy taunting, using his taunt. So I'm going to elaborate on this in my next, Doppelganger section, so stay tuned. Alright, so now we got World of V. World of V is Vergil's only healing mechanic. Well, not counting his Sindal trigger. So the way this move works is you press... Well, I don't know how it works on consoles, or on the controller, but for me personally, on the keyboard, I press back plus forward plus trig button, or S plus W plus E, but only when I'm facing the camera like this, because if I was facing the camera like this, S plus W plus E would be trig down. So you use trig down, but you basically face the camera in reverse. I don't really know. So that's how you use World of V, and what World of V really is Vergil uses the Yamato to separate his human side from his demon side, and V comes out. Now, this move is different. It varies based on your concentration level. If your concentration level is 0, V will only summon Griffin and Shadow, and they'll do one attack or something, and then he will, end the attack. When your concentration level is 1, Griffin and Shadow will do more attacks, and when your concentration level is 2, V will go into his double trigger form, and he will summon Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare, and they will do a whole bunch of attacks. So that's really important. The attack varies based on your concentration level. But another thing that really matters here is that this is Vergil's healing mechanic, just like his Sindal trigger. So if your concentration level is 0, Vergil will only recover 1 bar of health with World of V. If your concentration level is 1, he will recover 3 bars of health. And if your concentration level is 2, he will replenish 5 bars of health. So that's really important. That's basically what World of V is. And finally, we've got Vergil's parry mechanic. So the parry mechanic is, well, a mechanic for blocking. And the way it works is, if your concentration level is 1, and you hold the lock-on button, you hold shift, when an enemy does a projectile attack, or any attack, Vergil will block this attack. So that's essentially how the parry mechanic works when your concentration level is 1. But when your concentration level is 2, or well, max, whatever, you press and hold shift, or well, the lock on, and Vergil will not only block the attack, he will deflect it, he will redirect it, and the enemy will basically get hit by their own attack, as you can see here with Baphomet. So that is how Vergil's parry mechanic works. Now, you know how I said how I would talk about Vergil's judgment cut mechanic later? Well, here's later, so now we're talking about that. Alright, so now it's time to talk about this one mechanic that Vergil was basically famous for, and it's kind of crucial to his playstyle, and that is the judgment cut mechanic. So, if you have the Yamato equipped, and you're on the ground, and you hold the attack button until your Yamato starts glowing, and then you release the attack button, Vergil will do this backdash, and he will do a judgment cut. This is the regular judgment cut. You can do this exact same thing in midair. So you're in the air, you hold the attack button until your Yamato glows, and then you release it. That is basically this regular judgment cut. But then, that's like the basic. And, people might go, oh, well, what's so special about this? This is just a random sword slash projectile thing. Like, it doesn't even look cool. So why is this so pivotal to Vergil? Well, the regular judgment cut isn't really all that, but everything lies within the perfect judgment cut. It goes under a lot of names, and I'm not even sure if there's any distinction, but you have quick judgment, just judgment. Personally, I like calling it the perfect judgment cut because it requires your timing to be perfect. So that's how I refer to it 99% of the time in my combos and all, my other videos. So what is this perfect judgment cut and how do you do it? Well, look, so basically if you have the Yamato, I think that literally every attack you do with the Yamato, for example, aerial cleave, upper slash, rising star, rapid slash, all of these attacks require Vergil to unsheath his sword, and after he's done with the move, he sheathes the sword back. So that's basically how this whole thing works. Obviously you gotta unsheath your sword to use it, and you gotta, sheath it back when you're done using this move. Alright, so how is this relevant right now? So Vergil, if you basically start holding the attack button while he's doing a certain move, and then you release the attack button with perfect timing at the exact right moment when Vergil sheathes his sword, you will release this perfect judgment cut. Now, let's take, for example, Void Slash. Void Slash requires you to basically, you do this back to forward plus attack button, and I am holding the attack button while I'm pressing back plus forward plus attack button. And I'm holding it, and immediately, the second Vergil basically sheathes his sword, I release this perfect judgment cut. Alright? So that's basically how this works. Now, the thing about this is you can do this with almost anything. World of V? Yeah, even that. You know how at the end of World of V, Vergil basically pulls the sword right out of his chest and sheathes it? Yeah, well, you can basically, if you hold the attack button while Vergil is doing all this, while he's pulling his sword out of his chest and sheathing it back, if you release the attack button at the exact right moment, at the exact moment that his sword basically clicks in his sheath, you will be able to execute this perfect judgment cut. And you can see the spark, that his sheath makes, like his sword and the sheath, and that is your indication to basically, release the attack button. However, no one really pays attention to this mid-gameplay, how you're not even going to see the sparks. It requires muscle memory. This is why this is so important. I literally can't teach you this. There are tutorials online, but it all boils down to muscle memory. You really need to play the game a lot to realize exactly how this works, and it's really easy. You get the feeling for it very, very easily. And like I said, you can basically do this with any move that requires you to sheath your sword, even with taunts. Look, this is his regular taunt, the most regular show me your motivation taunt. I'm holding the attack button while Vergil is sheathing his sword, and I release it in time, exactly when he is done sheathing his sword, and I release this perfect judgment cut. You can do this for literally almost any attack or move, because taunts aren't really attacks. And naturally, you can do this perfect judgment cut with the X provocation taunt, and with the Bloody Palace taunt as well. Kinda goes without saying, so... You can also do this perfect judgment cut even after Judgment Cut End. You just hold the attack button while Vergil is sheathing his sword while using Judgment Cut End, and then you release it as soon as he's done. So yeah. Alright, so let me give Rapid Slash as an example. So Rapid Slash, if you're on the left side on the ground, is right plus attack button. If you press right and you hold the attack button, that is Rising Star. But here's what you want to do. You want to do Rapid Slash, which is right plus attack button, and immediately after you've pressed the attack button, you let go of it, and then as soon as Vergil has basically slashed through the enemy, you press the attack button again, and you keep holding it. And you keep holding it, you keep holding it, and you only release the attack button, or in my case the left mouse button, when Vergil is done sheathing his sword. Just like this. So you see this? I press right plus attack button. I let go of the attack button briefly, and then I hold it again, and I keep holding it, and as soon as Vergil puts the sword back in its sheath, I release the attack button when this spark happens, and I do a perfect judgment cut. That's basically how you do it. If you are too late, when you release the attack button too late, Vergil will do this regular judgment cut. He will do a backdash, and it basically won't work. That's not what you're looking for. But you know what? You don't have to do this. You don't have to use a perfect judgment cut this way. You don't have to wait for Vergil to sheath his sword. You can do it before he sheathes his sword. Now let me explain. So look at this. You saw this example with Rapid Slash. I wait for Vergil to basically put the sword back in its sheath, and then I basically, release the attack button, and I do a perfect judgment cut. But look at this. Alright? You looking? Alright, so I do the exact same thing, but I release the attack button at this point, and I still do a perfect judgment cut. Vergil didn't sheath his sword. He didn't even start. I basically released the attack button before he was done sheathing his sword, but at the exact right moment. This is even harder to explain, because it literally requires you to know, it requires muscle memory. I don't know how to explain it. This also happens with, well, basically everything, but with Rapid Slash, I think that's the best example. So you have these two versions of the perfect judgment cut. One, where you wait for Vergil to put the sword back in its sheath, and then you release the attack button, or you do it like this, before he sheathes the sword, But of course, if you're too late, if you miss the timing, if you release the attack button a millisecond too late or too early, okay, maybe it's not that strict, but if you miss the timing, you will do a regular judgment cut. So it's really important to know exactly how long you need to hold the attack button for and when to release it. Now, obviously, this isn't the only example. You also have aerial cleave. Now, as you can see here, if I am too late, I'm holding the attack button after using aerial cleave, and I release it too late, Vergil ends up doing this backdash, right? And he does a regular judgment cut. But if I waited for Vergil to sheath his sword, he puts it back in his sheath, you can see the spark, and I release the attack button then, that is the perfect judgment cut. But you don't have to do this, just like with the Rapid Slash. Here, I'm doing, aerial cleave, and I release the attack button before Vergil starts sheathing his sword. but I knew exactly when to do it. So, like I said, there are two versions of the perfect judgment cut. One where you will release the attack button as soon as Vergil sheathes his sword with this spark, and the second one is, well, muscle memory. You need to know exactly when. So at the start of this section, I basically said how you can only do a perfect judgment cut if you basically hold the attack button and then you release it just as Vergil puts the sword back in its sheath and you see the spark. And this is not untrue. This is definitely true. You can do this for taunts. You can do this for almost any move. So when Vergil puts the sword back in its sheath, you can definitely, if you hold the attack button and release it and time it properly, you'll do a perfect judgment cut. But you don't need any sheathing or unsheathing, as I've demonstrated with the rapid slash example and the aerial cleave example, which is what I meant when I said that there are two versions of the perfect judgment cut. One where you basically release the attack button at the exact moment that Vergil sheathes his sword, and one where you don't really wait for him to do this at all, but you need the timing down. But it's, of course, not exclusive to rapid slash and aerial cleave. You can do this with even the most basic things, such as one hit or two hits. You don't have to sheath or unsheath your sword. If you get the timing right for this perfect judgment cut, you can do it before Vergil even starts sheathing the sword. And let me explain. Look at Yamato combo A in your Sin Double Trigger form. So he does Yamato combo A, he finishes the whole thing, and now he sheathes his sword, and boom, you do the perfect judgment cut. You release the attack button. But look at this. I release the attack button as soon as he does the slash, and I still end up doing this perfect judgment cut. This is what I'm talking about. It is pure muscle memory. It's kind of easy, I guess, to know how to do this perfect judgment cut. This other version where you basically have to wait for the spark, because it's easier to time it then for some people. Let me just wait for him to put the sword back and I'll see the spark or whatever. But when it comes to this other version, that, I guess, is harder for people. It's still incredibly easy. It's so laughably easy, but maybe, if you're new to the game, you don't know how to do it. Now, I said how you can only use the perfect judgment cut for moves that require you to basically unsheath and then sheath your sword. But that's not really true at all, because look at this. For the first two hits of Yamato combo A, Vergil doesn't unsheath his Yamato. He hits you, quite literally, with the sheath. And you can actually use the perfect judgment cut after the first hit or the second hit. Look at this. I'm doing the first two hits and I'm holding the attack button, and I release it in time to do this perfect judgment cut. No unsheathing, no sheathing, I just do the perfect judgment cut. But if I'm too late in releasing the attack button, I do a regular judgment cut. You can do this after the first hit or the second hit, doesn't matter, but I'm just trying to tell you how you can literally do this perfect judgment cut at almost any point for any move, any hit, as long as you know the timing. So that's really important. I need to explain two more things. One thing I'm not going to explain. So, first of all, Vergil can do 4 of these perfect judgment cuts in a row. When this happens, he will say jackpot.
Don't kneel before jackpot. You're finished. Jackpot.
He can do it on the ground, he can do it in midair. The timing is kind of different, though, for both of these. So, I think it's a lot easier if you're in midair. So, you do this in midair, but how do you do it? Again, pure muscle memory. This is literally impossible for me to explain, but it's the most crucial mechanic for Vergil. If you don't know how to do this, there's quite literally no point in using judgment cuts with Vergil, at all. When Vergil came out, I was literally practicing in the void for 2 days, and it took me 2 to 3 days to completely get this down. Like, I didn't know. The tutorials, they weren't helpful. I didn't know what to do. They were like, pay attention to when he sheathes his sword. Look at the spark. Look at this. Look at that. Nope, didn't help. The only thing that helped was me experimenting in the void and doing things on my own. And that's how I learned how to do this quadruple judgment cut. And like I said, the timing is kind of different when you're on the ground and when you're in midair. So, essentially what happens here is, you need to know exactly when to press the attack button and when to release it. You press release, and you're holding it. You hold, press release, hold, press release, hold. It's very, very difficult to explain. So the way this quadruple judgment cut works is you press and hold the attack button until your Yamato starts glowing, and then you release the attack button, and as soon as you release it, you immediately press it again and you hold it. Then you release it again, then you press and hold it, then you release it again, then you press and hold it, then you release it again, then you press and hold it. But you gotta know exactly when to press and hold it, for how long to hold it, and when to release it. So that's kind of, it's something that I can't really help you with. You need to get this rhythm down. But believe me, like I said, it's not that hard at all. This whole portion of the video this whole section is kind of tedious, honestly, because I'm just telling you, yo, get good, bro, get good, and that's kind of not what I want to do. There are tutorials online that might be helpful to you, you might find them kind of, conducive in some way, but, right now, this is all I can do. I can only demonstrate what this quadruple judgment cut looks like. And you can see how I'm pressing my left mouse button, or my attack button, how long I'm holding it for, when I'm pausing it, but it means absolutely nothing, believe me, because you really need to have a knack for it. And I'm not trying to flex or anything. A lot of players can do this, but I'm just saying it's kind of like a basic mechanic. Because apparently after every judgment cut, Vergil sheathes and unsheathes his sword, and you need to know exactly when to release it to do this perfect judgment cut. And now, finally, you have the trick judgment. This, I'm not going to bother explaining. This is something that even I can barely do, if ever. I sometimes do it by accident. It's kind of like most advanced players use this. There's a tutorial made by SS Smoke, this professional, probably one of my favorite DMC players in general. He's not a Vergil main, he's a Dante main, but he did make this tutorial, and I think it can be very helpful. But yeah, you basically do this trick thing. You use trick up or trick down, and you gotta know exactly when to release the attack button. This is infinitely more difficult than, learning how to time this. To do this trick judgment, you need to know how to do perfect judgment cuts perfectly. So not only do you need to know how to do 4 in a row, you need to know exactly when to time the trick actions. Also, this allows you to do judgment cuts infinitely. There's a video of some guy doing like 150 or 130 judgment cuts in a row with Vergil, thanks to this trick judgment. So, yeah, that's all I can say regarding this, perfect judgment cut mechanic. So, yeah. So, there's this one other thing that I have to mention regarding the perfect or quick judgment cut. And this mechanic appears in a lot of combos, but there are a couple of instances where there's this one setup that you'll see a pattern, and let me explain. So, I don't use this perfect judgment cut solely for stylish purposes. I use it out of necessity most of the time, and let me explain what I mean by that. So look at the library combo. I use Rapid Slash, and I hold the attack button while using it, and then I cancel the Rapid Slash. Well, I don't cancel it, but I use this perfect judgment cut after using Rapid Slash. Then I switch to the Mirage Edge, and I use Million Stab. Now, why am I doing this? Is this judgment cut really necessary? Yes, because if you use a regular judgment cut, what's going to happen is the enemy will simply fall to the ground because Vergil will do this backdash. But if you don't use judgment cut at all, What's going to happen is, look, I switch to the Mirage Edge after using Rapid Slash, and I am pressing right and holding the attack button. I want to use Million Stab, but Vergil is not reacting. It doesn't matter that I switch to the Mirage Edge and that I'm pressing right plus holding the attack button. I'm basically inputting Million Stab, but Vergil will not do anything. He will not react until he has put that Yamato, until he's put that sword back in its sheath. So he does not react. The only way to use Million Stab is to cancel the Rapid Slash into this perfect judgment cut. This also happens with the Sanctuary combo. Look, I basically use Rapid Slash, and I do this perfect judgment cut, and then I use Million Stab. If I hadn't done this, Vergil would not have been able to do Million Stab. He would have been too busy sheathing his sword, because he doesn't react to commands when sheathing his sword, and the enemy would have fallen to the ground. You can also see this with the blue combo. Here you can see how I basically use Rapid Slash, and I'm holding the attack button while using it, and I release it to do this perfect judgment cut. And then I basically do Yamato combo A to close in on the enemy. Now, if I hadn't done this perfect judgment cut, if I had just started using Yamato combo A while Vergil was sheathing his sword, nothing would have happened because, like I said, Vergil does not react to melee commands while sheathing his sword. So you have to cancel Rapid Slash, you have to cancel this process of Vergil sheathing his sword by using a perfect judgment cut. And only after using this perfect judgment cut can you continue using whatever you want to use, be it Million Stab, be it, Void Slash, or Yamato Combo A, or whatever. And you can see the same thing with this. This is the Heaven combo, and this is the Wasteland combo. It's the exact same thing. So, essentially, I use Rapid Slash, and I'm holding the attack button, and I release it at the exact right moment to do this perfect judgment cut. And then I use Void Slash. Now, what would have happened had I not used a judgment cut at all? Well, as you can see here, I'm basically using Rapid Slash, I'm done, and now I'm pressing back plus forward plus attack button. I am attempting to use Void Slash, but nothing is coming out. Void Slash won't come out because, like I said for the 50 billionth time, Vergil does not react to melee commands while he is sheathing his sword. So I have to use this perfect judgment cut and then, only then, after I'm done with this perfect judgment cut, I will be able to use Void Slash. So this is why the perfect judgment cut is so important. It allows you to cancel this process of Vergil sheathing his sword, because he does not react to commands while he's doing that, and that is very, very annoying. So that is why you have to do this. But yeah, I'm really sorry, once again, that I wasn't able to properly explain this mechanic. It just so happens that it's really timing intensive, if you know what I mean. It really all depends on muscle memory, and I can only do so much, believe me. And the reason it's been like more than 20 minutes, just me explaining this one mechanic, is simply because it's that, important when it comes to Vergil. Even though the meat of this video and the focus is on the Doppelganger, I kind of feel like this was only worth noting. So yeah. And I think that's all she wrote. Now we can finally talk about Vergil's Doppelganger mechanic, the crux of this video. The reason you all clicked on this video, basically. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so now let's talk about Vergil's Doppelganger mechanic. So Vergil's Doppelganger is essentially his double trigger, and as you already know, you fill up the double trigger gauge by landing attacks, hits, and stuff like that. But that's kind of irrelevant right now. Also, you can only summon the Doppelganger if you have more than 3 bars worth of double trigger energy. When you're close to the enemy and you summon the Doppelganger being summoned will basically propel the enemy into the air. They'll basically get a launch into the air. But if you summon the Doppelganger while you're in midair and the enemy is close by, you'll see this little time freeze, like the enemy will not fall to the ground. Because you summoning the Doppelganger in the air has this effect where the enemy is kind of slowed down while you're summoning the Doppelganger. So that too is kind of important. So let's get into the basics. So there are 3 versions of the doppelganger. You have the slow version, who is basically, you have this red double trigger gauge, and you summon him, in my case, by pressing X. So the slow doppelganger is delayed by approximately half a second. Not really, but it's kind of like half a second. So this means that he copies your commands about half a second later, so he doesn't register what you press immediately. He does it approximately half a second later. Then you have the normal doppelganger with the purple double trigger gauge. You summon him by pressing C, in my case. So this doppelganger is also delayed, but he is slightly less delayed. He is not as delayed as the slow doppelganger, but he is still not perfectly in sync with you, meaning that when you press something, he won't react to it immediately. Then you finally have the haste version of the doppelganger, or well, the blue double trigger gauge. This doppelganger is completely perfectly in sync with you, and he is basically, he reacts to what you press immediately. In my case, you summon him by pressing V. So this is it. Like, you have these 3 forms, these 3 versions of the doppelganger. You deactivate the doppelganger, in my case, by pressing Z. So that's like how you deactivate him. Another thing extremely worth noting is that you can basically change the doppelganger's mode on the spot. So let's say you have the haste version of the doppelganger active. You can change his mode from haste to slow by pressing the button you use to summon the slow version of the doppelganger, in my case X. And the doppelganger will basically flicker, and that's an indication that his mode has been changed. And you can do this for everything. Let's say you have the slow version of the doppelganger active. You want to change his mode from slow to normal. So you press C, because that's the button you press to summon the normal version of the doppelganger. And you can do this infinitely, basically. You can change his mode on the spot. Another thing that is extremely worth noting is that you can call the doppelganger back to your position. So let's say the doppelganger is too far away from you. He's on the other side of the map, and you want him next to you. So let's say you have the haste version of the doppelganger active, right? To call him back to your position, you simply press V, which is the button you use to basically, summon the haste version of the doppelganger. If you have the slow version of the doppelganger active and you want to call him back to your position, you press X, which is the button you use to summon the slow version of the doppelganger. So you essentially press the button you used to summon that version of the doppelganger. If you have the normal version of the doppelganger active, but he's on the other side of the map, you press C, because that's the button you use to summon the normal version of the doppelganger. So I hope you understand that. Also, if you're too far away from the doppelganger, like way too far away, he will automatically go back to your position without you having to manually do anything. So if you're too far away from the doppelganger, he immediately goes back to your position. I think that's kind of worth noting. Another thing that I guess is kind of worth noting, again, is that the doppelganger will be immediately deactivated if you use a super move. If you use an ultimate, basically. So Judgment Cut End with the Yamato will immediately deactivate the doppelganger. Hell on Earth with Beowulf will immediately deactivate the doppelganger. And Deep Stinger with the Mirage Edge will immediately deactivate the doppelganger. So that is incredibly worth noting. Also, we gotta talk about the trick actions. So when you use trick up, the doppelganger will not react. If you use trick down, the doppelganger will not react. But if you use air trick, which is locking on plus pressing the trick button, or in my case shift plus E, the doppelganger will react. He will teleport with you. So trick up and down, it's all good, it's all game, but using air trick to teleport will cause the doppelganger to basically change his position, and he will teleport with you to the enemy. So that's a really important note. Now, you know that I've already explained the Judgment Cut mechanic to a degree, so I'm not going to be doing that again. However, I will mention this because it's not extraneous to the topic at hand right now. It still pertains to the doppelganger, so Basically, you know how you have this regular judgment cut, which you do by holding the attack button and releasing it. And you also know that you have this quick judgment cut, or this perfect judgment cut, that you can do if you're timing, if you release the attack button at the right time, usually when Vergil sheathes his sword and you see this spark, you know, when his sword clicks, basically, into the sheath. So here's how this can work with the Doppelganger, and this is why I'm bringing this up. If you do a regular judgment cut, and your Doppelganger is active, let's say you have the haste version active, so what's going to happen is you hold the attack button and you release it, and obviously both Vergil and the Doppelganger will do a regular judgment cut from different sides in this case. But what happens if you use a perfect judgment cut and you release the attack button at the exact right moment? Well, then this happens. As you can see, if you use a perfect judgment cut, the Doppelganger automatically goes back to your position to do this perfect judgment cut with you. Now, 85% of the time, you want to do this perfect judgment cut, because you want the Doppelganger to go back to your position and do this perfect judgment cut with you. This is the case with the Void combo, the Pit combo, just a lot of combos overall. But sometimes, as is the case with the Ice combo, you want the Doppelganger to do this regular judgment cut. You don't want him to go back to your side. You want him to stay there. So this is why this can be really important. You need to keep this in mind. If you do a regular judgment cut, the Doppelganger stays where he is, and he does the regular judgment cut. But if you do a perfect judgment cut, then the Doppelganger immediately goes back to your position. So, yeah. And now, the most important thing. The Doppelganger can only use the Yamato. He cannot use Beowulf, and he cannot use the Mirage Edge. He can only use the Yamato. So, and picture this, okay? So you are on the left side, on the ground, and you have Beowulf equipped. And you press left plus attack button. That is Beast Uppercut. But the Doppelganger will basically react to you pressing left plus attack button, and he will use upper slash. Because if you have the Yamato equipped and you're on the left side on the ground and you press left plus attack button, that is upper slash. So he basically does the Yamato equivalent of this move. So left plus attack button with the Yamato is upper slash. Left plus attack button with Beowulf is Beast Uppercut. The Doppelganger can only use the Yamato, and he only uses the Yamato. You do the math. So that is really important. If you look at this example, right? Let's say your enemy is in front of you, okay? And you have the Yamato equipped. Pressing back plus forward plus attack button is going to result in you using Void Slash, and the Doppelganger will use it with you, because that's, you know, he can only use the Yamato. But if you have Beowulf equipped and you press back plus forward plus attack button, that is kick 13. So Vergil will use kick 13, but the Doppelganger will still use Void Slash because he can only use the Yamato. So, you know, basically Void Slash is Yamato's equivalent for kick 13, right? So let's say you press back plus forward plus attack button with the Mirage Edge. Vergil will use drive, but his Doppelganger will once again use Void Slash. Or let's say you press right plus attack button with the Mirage Edge and you're on the left side on the ground. You will do Stinger with the Mirage Edge, but the Doppelganger will use Rapid Slash because pressing right plus attack button with the Yamato when you're on the left side on the ground is Rapid Slash. So Vergil's Doppelganger, since he can only use the Yamato, he uses the Yamato equivalents of these moves, right? So if you press the left plus attack button with the Mirage Edge, that is high time. But the Doppelganger will once again use upper slash because left plus attack button is basically upper slash with the Yamato on the left side. If you press right plus attack button with Beowulf when you're on the left side, that is lunar phase. But the Doppelganger will use rapid slash because right plus attack button with the Yamato on the left side is rapid slash. let's say you have the Mirage Edge equipped, and you hold the attack button for a very long time, and then you release it. What's going to happen is Vergil will use round trip, because holding the attack button for a long time and releasing it is round trip. But the Doppelganger, who can only use the Yamato, will copy you doing this, and he will use a judgment cut, because if you hold the attack button for a long time and you release it with the Yamato, that is judgment cut, and the Doppelganger can only use the Yamato, so he will use a judgment cut. I don't think I can be any more clear. So this is an instance from the Knight combo. Vergil is on the left side in midair with the Mirage Edge equipped, and he uses Helmbreaker, but the Doppelganger, who is on the right side on the ground, uses Rising Star. So why does this happen and how? So first of all, Helmbreaker is just pressing the attack button once. So if Vergil were to press the attack button and nothing but the attack button, he would use Helmbreaker, because that's Helmbreaker, but his Doppelganger, who is on the right side on the ground and can only use the Yamato, would just do one hit with the Yamato. Because, again, he copies your commands. You pressing the attack button with the Mirage Edge in midair is Helmbreaker. But you pressing the attack button on the ground with the Yamato, that is just one hit with the Yamato. Which is why his Doppelganger would simply do one hit with the Yamato if you were to just press the attack button, nothing but the attack button. But if you press left and you hold the attack button, Vergil would still use Helmbreaker, but his Doppelganger would use Rising Star, because if you're on the right side, on the ground with the Yamato, and you press left and you hold the attack button, that is Rising Star. So that's why, for this setup, even though Helmbreaker is just pressing the attack button, you can't just press the attack button, because then the Doppelganger would just do one hit with the Yamato. But if you press left and you hold the attack button, Vergil would still do Helmbreaker, but the Doppelganger would use Rising Star. A similar thing happens with the Void combo. Here, both Vergil and the Doppelganger are on the right side in midair. Vergil has the Mirage Edge equipped, and the Doppelganger obviously has the Yamato equipped. So Vergil uses Helmbreaker, but the Doppelganger uses Aerial Cleave. Now, how do we do that? It's very simple. We press right plus attack button, because when you're on the right side in midair with the Yamato and you want to do Aerial Cleave, you press right plus attack button. So Vergil's Doppelganger will copy you pressing right plus attack button, and he will use Aerial Cleave. But if you only press the attack button, which is required for Helmbreaker, without pressing right, Vergil will still use Helmbreaker, but the Doppelganger will only use one hit with the Yamato in the air, because he will react to you pressing the attack button once. And for Vergil, that's Helmbreaker. But for the Doppelganger, who can only use the Yamato, pressing the attack button with the Yamato once in the air is only the first hit of Aerial Rave 1, and that's what the Doppelganger will do. Now, there's this misconception that the Doppelganger copies your attacks, but that isn't exactly what happens. So he doesn't copy your attacks, he copies your commands, your inputs. And this is really, really important, because it's a whole different thing. So let's say you have the haste version of the Doppelganger active. You're on the ground, on the left side, and you have the Yamato equipped. And you press right plus attack button. That is rapid slash, and the Doppelganger will basically react to what you're pressing. He will react to you pressing right plus attack button, right? So he will do rapid slash with you. That's very obvious. He can use the Yamato, you have the Yamato, you both press the same things, he reacts immediately. But let's say the Doppelganger is on the right side. Okay, let's say he's on the right side. He's not on the left side. And you press right plus attack button. What's going to happen is you will use rapid slash, but the Doppelganger will use upper slash. And why is that? It's because when you're on the right side, on the ground with the Yamato, and you press right plus attack button, that is upper slash. And the Doppelganger is on the right side, and he reacts to your commands. He doesn't copy your attacks, he copies your inputs. And it all depends on his position, whether he's on the ground or in midair, whether he's on the left side or on the right side. It all depends on his position, the camera angle, and everything else. So let's say you are on the right side now with Vergil, and the doppelganger is on the left side, okay? And you are in midair. You're in midair on the right side, and you press right plus attack button, okay? So doing this will cause Vergil to use aerial cleave, because pressing right plus attack button when you're on the right side in midair, that's aerial cleave. But the doppelganger, who is on the left side on the ground, will react to you pressing right plus attack button, and he will use rapid slash, because when you're on the left side and you press right plus attack button, that is essentially rapid slash. So think of the doppelganger as another Vergil, who basically copies your commands, but it all depends on where he is located, and that is essentially what determines everything. Also, let's take a similar example. Let's say you're on the right side, like Vergil is on the right side, and he's in midair, and you press right and you hold the attack button. This will cause Vergil to use aerial cleave, so that hasn't changed. But his doppelganger, who's on the left side, will use Rising Star, because if you press right and you hold the attack button when you're on the left side on the ground with the Yamato, that is Rising Star. So in the previous example, we press right plus attack button. Vergil does aerial cleave on the right side, his doppelganger does rapid slash, because right plus attack button with the Yamato on the left side on the ground is rapid slash. But right plus holding the attack button when you're on the left side on the ground with the Yamato is Rising Star. So in this case, the doppelganger does Rising Star. So he reacts to what you press, basically. Also, let's look at this example. You're on the left side, right? So Vergil is on the left side, on the ground, and he has the Yamato equipped. But his doppelganger is on the right side, also on the ground. So you press left and you hold the attack button, okay? This will cause Vergil to use upper slash 2, because pressing left and holding the attack button when you're on the left side, on the ground with the Yamato, is upper slash 2. But his doppelganger is on the right side, and he copies you pressing left and holding the attack button. But since he's on the right side, he will do Rising Star, because when you're on the right side, on the ground, pressing left and holding the attack button is Rising Star. Do you understand what that means? He doesn't copy your attacks. He doesn't use upper slash just because you used it. No, he uses Rising Star. Think of it as another Vergil, like I said, who is on the right side, and he simply reacts to you pressing left plus holding the attack button. So you have two Vergils. One is on the left side. If you press left and hold the attack button with this Vergil, that is upper slash 2. But the other Vergil, who is on the right side, will react to that, and when you press the left and hold the attack button on the right side, that is Rising Star. I hope you understand that. Alright, so let's say you're on the left side, in midair with the Yamato, and your doppelganger is on the right side on the ground. So when you're on the left side and you're in midair and you have the Yamato equipped, pressing left plus attack button will result in you using aerial cleave. But when you're on the right side, on the ground, pressing left plus attack button is rapid slash. So again, left plus attack button in midair on the left side, aerial cleave. Left plus attack button on the right side, on the ground, rapid slash. So that's really important. So if you were to press left plus attack button, just, left plus attack button, Vergil would end up doing aerial cleave, but his doppelganger would end up using rapid slash, because the doppelganger is on the ground on the right side, and pressing left plus attack button is rapid slash. And since the doppelganger copies your commands, your inputs, he would just, react to what you're pressing, and left plus attack button is simply rapid slash when you're on that side. But you don't want that. You want the doppelganger to use void slash. And since the doppelganger, like we said, is on the right side, on the ground, using void slash is right plus left plus attack button, or D plus A plus left mouse button, right? So How do you solve this? Well, it's very simple. While using aerial cleave with Vergil, you don't press left plus attack button. You don't press A plus left mouse button. Instead, you press right plus left plus attack button, or D plus A plus left mouse button. This will still cause Vergil to use aerial cleave, but his doppelganger will end up using void slash instead of rapid slash, because void slash, like I said, on the right side, on the ground, is right plus left plus attack button. If you only press left plus attack button, the doppelganger will end up using rapid slash. But if you press right plus left plus attack button, he will use void slash. It's very, very simple. There are a lot of combos that I did that have so many of these interesting doppelganger setups, so I really encourage you to watch them. So, yeah. Let's take a look at this setup, for example. Vergil is on the left side, and his doppelganger is also on the left side. There are two major differences and two things we gotta factor in. Vergil is in midair, he's on the left, and he has the Mirage Edge equipped. His doppelganger is also on the left, but he is on the ground, and he has the Yamato equipped, because as we already know, the doppelganger can only use the Yamato. He can't use Beowulf or the Mirage Edge. So, if we press D plus left mouse button in midair with Vergil, with the Mirage Edge equipped, right plus attack button, that is Air Stinger. So right plus attack button in midair with the Mirage Edge is Air Stinger. But Vergil's doppelganger, who is on the ground and has the Yamato, will copy that input. He will copy right plus attack button, or D plus left mouse button, but since he has the Yamato, he will use rapid slash, because right plus attack button with the Yamato on the ground is basically rapid slash. But with the Mirage Edge in midair, it's Air Stinger. But that's not what we want. We want his doppelganger to use Rising Star and not Rapid Slash. And as we already know, Rapid Slash is right plus attack button, or D plus left mouse button. But Rising Star is right plus holding the attack button, or holding the left mouse button, basically. So what we want to do is, we have the Mirage Edge equipped, Vergil is in midair, so we press right and we hold the attack button. So we press D and we hold the left mouse button. And now Vergil's doppelganger, who is on the ground, will mimic those commands, and he will do Rising Star with the Yamato. But it's not enough to hold the attack button, you gotta hold it until the Mirage Edge starts glowing. And then you release the attack button, and Vergil will release Round Trip. So that's what you gotta do. Because Round Trip is activated by holding the attack button for for more than 2 seconds, basically. Like here you can see how I basically, I pressed right and I held the attack button, and I did Air Stinger, and Vergil's doppelganger did Rising Star, but I released the attack button as soon as Vergil's doppelganger was done using Rising Star. And because of this, I couldn't release Round Trip. So to do Rising Star, you need to hold the attack button for like half a second. But to do Round Trip, you need to hold it for like a second and a half. So what happened here essentially was I held the attack button for a little while just so that Vergil's doppelganger could do Rising Star, but I released the attack button immediately after, before the Mirage Edge could start glowing. You're supposed to wait for the Mirage Edge to start glowing, and then you release the attack button so that you could launch Round Trip. And then you switch to Beowulf, you use Starfall, and then you immediately use Hell on Earth. This will automatically deactivate the doppelganger, and the enemy will basically be, trapped on the Round Trip. It'll keep slicing them up, and you will be able to basically use Hell on Earth and catch the enemy before they fall to the ground, because the Mirage Edge that's spinning, that's cutting them up, is preventing them from falling to the ground. And that's basically it. Also, Vergil cannot react to you pressing the melee button while he's taunting, or at least for about a second, He won't react to you pressing the attack button while he's taunting. He will be too busy doing the taunt. But his doppelganger, if he's active, he will react to you pressing whatever you're pressing. Check this out. For example, here, Vergil is using his taunt. I am pressing the attack button. He's not reacting. He's not doing anything. He's taunting. But his doppelganger is. He's reacting to everything that I'm pressing. This is very important for a lot of combos. For example, in this combo, the Wreckage combo, I basically use this air taunt, and I'm using this air taunt and pressing the attack button. Vergil doesn't react, but his doppelganger does, and he continues this aerial rave, basically. This is really important. I also did this with the Tetsuzanko combo. I started using the lock-on taunt, and I press right and hold the attack button. Right plus holding the attack button is Rising Star when you're on the left side. But Vergil is too busy taunting, so he doesn't react to me pressing this, but his doppelganger does. So the doppelganger does Rising Star while Vergil is too busy taunting. So this is incredibly important. Additionally, Vergil does not react to any melee commands while he is sheathing his sword. Especially after Rapid Slash, this is like the prime example. You can see that I'm basically pressing the attack button, but he is not reacting at all. However, his doppelganger is. With the Crimson combo here, Vergil is using... he's sheathing his sword after using Rapid Slash, and I'm pressing right and holding the attack button, which is Rising Star. He doesn't immediately do Rising Star. No, you gotta wait for him to sheath his sword. But the doppelganger does. So this is incredibly important. Another instance where this can kind of be, relevant is the Heaven combo. So with the Heaven combo, Vergil summons the haste version of the doppelganger. He immediately uses Rapid Slash. And as you can see, the doppelganger ends up doing Yamato combo B. Now, the reason this happens is because Vergil doesn't react to any melee commands, any melee commands when he's using Rapid Slash and various other moves. So he doesn't react, but the doppelganger does. So I use Rapid Slash, and immediately after using Rapid Slash, I press attack button, pause, attack button, which is Yamato combo B. So the doppelganger reacts to this, and he does Yamato combo B. And then I use Void Slash with Vergil to catch the enemy. So, as you can see, that's kind of this thing that I'm talking about. Vergil doesn't react to commands, but his doppelganger does. So I thought I'd mention this one really interesting doppelganger setup that you see in the Tetsuzanko combo. This isn't exactly this isn't exactly basic, but I still feel like it's kind of worth mentioning in this part of the video. So you can see how in the Tetsuzanko combo, after Vergil does this part that I mentioned previously, Vergil does the lock-on taunt, and the doppelganger basically does Rising Star, and Vergil doesn't react because he's taunting, but the doppelganger does. Now, you can see that after the doppelganger is done using Rising Star, Vergil teleports to the enemy, but that's not all. Vergil and the doppelganger basically swap places, and you can see this blur, like these two blurs. If you pay attention to them, you can see how Vergil and the doppelganger basically switched positions. Now you might be wondering how I did that, and let me explain. I'll try to illustrate this in a simpler manner. So as you can see here, basically Vergil is away from the enemy. There's distance between Vergil and the enemy. But the doppelganger is right next to the enemy. So what do? How do we get Vergil and the doppelganger to swap places? It's very simple. You use Air Trick, and immediately after using Air Trick, you call the doppelganger back to your position. So in my case, I press Shift plus E, or lock-on plus trig button, and immediately after doing this, I don't waste a millisecond, I immediately press V to call the doppelganger back to my position. So this is what happens. If I call the doppelganger back to my position first and then use Air Trick to teleport, what's going to happen is both Vergil and the doppelganger will teleport to the enemy at the same time, because the doppelganger teleports with you when you use air trick. So the key is to first use air trick, and before Vergil starts teleporting, you immediately call the doppelganger back to your position, in my case by pressing V. So what happens here is essentially the doppelganger goes back to Vergil's position, to the position Vergil was in before he teleported to the enemy. So that's why it looks like they're basically swapping places. It's kind of like Sasuke's Rinnegan ability, Amino Tajikura, swapping your position with the enemies. So that's kind of how it works, and I think it's pretty damn cool. Also, there's another setup that, again, this isn't really a basic thing, but I feel like it's kind of important to mention. So there's this setup that appears in a lot of combos. It appeared in the Wasteland combo, it appeared in the Pit combo, it appeared in the Urban combo, it appeared in the Ruin combo, it appeared in the Night combo, so it's a setup that is very prevalent among these combos, and that setup has to do with you summoning the slow version of the doppelganger, and then you use Rising Star, but the doppelganger uses Rapid Slash. Alright, so basically right plus attack button is Rapid Slash, but right plus holding the attack button is Rising Star. So let's say you have the slow version of the doppelganger active. If you were to press right plus attack button, what would happen is Vergil would do Rapid Slash. The doppelganger would also do Rapid Slash, but since he's delayed, he would do it half a second later, but he would still mimic your commands. But let's say you pressed right and you held the attack button. What would happen is Vergil would do Rising Star, but the doppelganger would react to your commands, he would react to you pressing right plus holding the attack button, but he would do it half a second later because he's delayed. But by that time, it will have been too late because the enemy will have already been in the air. And this is really important because you can't do Rising Star unless you're making contact with the enemy. So if you press right and you hold the attack button, that's Rising Star. But if the enemy is airborne, it doesn't matter if you're holding the attack button, you will simply go right under them and you will do Rapid Slash, because Rising Star only activates upon contact with the enemy. And in this case, you know, Vergil's doppelganger is reacting to you pressing right and holding the attack button. But the reason he's doing Rapid Slash is because the enemy is in the air, Vergil launched him into the air with Rising Star, and they have no choice but to use Rapid Slash because they can't make contact with the enemy. So that's basically how this works. If we were using the haste version of the doppelganger, you know, the doppelganger who was completely in sync with you, and if we had that guy active and we pressed right and held the attack button, well, in that case, both Vergil and the doppelganger would basically use Rising Star in tandem, because there's no delay. But since we're using the slow doppelganger, he is delayed by like half a second, so yeah. Now, I feel like I should mention, and I feel like I'd be remiss not to, I feel like I should mention this one setup that appears in a lot of combos. It appears in the Street combo, the Void combo, the Heaven combo. Basically, the thing I'm talking about is this. And the reason I'm talking about it is because, you know how this whole journey with me trying to study the doppelganger and learn how it works? You know, the way this whole thing started was, like I said, I couldn't tell which version of the doppelganger Sunhee Legend was using, and because of that I couldn't properly replicate his combo, right? Because, you know, he summons the doppelganger and then he does Rapid Slash, but the doppelganger just stays there. So I was like, does he use the slow version? But no, it's not the slow version. He actually uses the haste version of the doppelganger, but he does Rapid Slash immediately after summoning this doppelganger, before he's fully formed. If you summon the haste version of the doppelganger and you use Rapid Slash, like I already said, what's going to happen is Vergil and the doppelganger will use Rapid Slash at the exact same time, because the haze doppelganger reacts to your commands immediately. He is completely in sync with you. He immediately reacts to your inputs. But here's the thing. What you want to do is you summon the haste version of the Doppelganger, and before he's fully formed, you use Rapid Slash. So before he's fully formed, like immediately after pressing the button for summoning the Doppelganger, you immediately use Rapid Slash. You press right plus attack button. So I'm pretty sure I've covered all of the fundamentals of Vergil's Doppelganger mechanic. I don't think there are any more mysteries, at least not that I know of. But, you know, if you're interested in the specifics or you want to see how the Doppelganger mechanic works in actual combos, or let's say you're interested in replicating a certain combo from this list, you know, then like I said, I strongly encourage you to watch one of my combo analyses where I dissect that combo and I go bit by bit, step by step, and I basically talk about how the Doppelganger works in that combo. But of course, that's only if you took a liking to a particular combo from this list. If not, then I guess this is enough. These are the rudimentary aspects, the rudimentary things, basically the basics of the Doppelganger mechanic. If you want to know the specifics, then watch the combo analyses. If not, then this should give you an idea as to how you should use the Doppelganger in combos. Like I said, I didn't need any more info than what I showed you here for my combos. Of course, it's not that easy when you actually try to apply all this in combos, but yeah, that's basically it. So like I said, this video is basically part 1 of a series. In a way, this is the intro, where I describe the basics of Vergil's moveset, as well as his Doppelganger mechanic. Like, the basics, the very basics, if that makes any sense. I also talk about my motivation, you know, like what drove me to do this, to make this series. So this is part 1, and the rest will just be individual combos analyzed and dissected bit by bit, step by step, in detail. So I did 23 combos, so expect 23 videos analyzing these combos. So yeah, I seriously hope I was of help. I know it's kind of late. I understand that DMC5 has become, DMC used to be a niche franchise, but with DMC5, and especially Special Edition, right, I feel like DMC5, like DMC as a series, is no longer as obscure as it used to be. Because, Bury the Light has almost it's got around 100 million views. All those Vergil statuses, all those memes, you see Vergil profile pics everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's Steam, doesn't matter if it's like a game like CSGO, doesn't matter if it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, it could be hentai, Pornhub, whatever. You will always see, you're bound to see some DMC memes or profile pics. It's kind of like with Metal Gear Rising, basically. But, so I know that this is the case and the DMC is popular, but I also know that DMC5 combos have never really been popular. Like, even among the most renowned, the most famous DMC professional players like Donguri or Sakaki or SS Smoke, their combos, they don't get a lot of views, no matter how exceptional and remarkable they may be. And I feel like that's kind of a shame, honestly. I feel like boss battles do way better. There's a channel called Kodai, and he basically does all these boss battles where it's a work of art. If DMC5 combos are a work of art, then DMC5 boss battles are also work of art, because it's a different type of skill, having to learn and knowing exactly how the enemy will react to certain moves, trying not to lose a single bar of your HP. That takes a lot of work, believe me. What those people do is insane. So Kodai is one of the best when it comes to that, when it comes to these boss fights. But the bottom line is the point I'm trying to make is DMC5 combos are not that important, even if DMC5 is, because people, players, they don't really care. I've noticed that, and I mean no ill will. I bear no ill will. The community, the DMC5 community is amazing. The DMC community in general, they're very supportive. But I've noticed that, I'm not going to say the majority, but a lot of them aren't exactly very good at the game. They love the game, yeah, or at least they say so. But they just do anything, and you just mash random buttons, and they call it a combo. And more often than not, you'll see comments saying, "Oh my god, this is amazing, you're a god. Do you have 20 fingers?" And it's the most basic thing ever. As a matter of fact, this combo by Sunhee Legend, or Sunny Legend, I don't really know, it is actually one of the easiest combos on this list. And for some reason, it's being praised as the pinnacle of combat in DMC. And I've seen a lot of Japanese professional players kind of get pissed at this as well, because Vergil, he is pretty, he can be complex, right? But Dante is infinitely more complex, and that Vergil combo that has like 15 million views, that is not the epitome of complexity. It's not that convoluted, right? It's like top 3 easiest combos on this list, probably. No disrespect, it's still one of my favorite combos. Probably my favorite combo, actually. Because it's so simple, it's so diverse, But, yeah, it's simply not the most complex thing ever. Which is why you can see so many players trying to replicate this combo. It's called the combo now. And a lot of players try to replicate it. Some do it successfully, some do it less successfully. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is I did this to prove a point. That Vergil can be complex, because some people, conversely, some people say that Vergil is so basic. He's a free win. He's so overpowered. Real professional, real skilled players will play Dante. But, only noobs will pick Vergil. But the Doppelganger mechanic begs to differ. It says otherwise. And I wanted to prove that. And since there is no Doppelganger tutorial online, I felt like I would make this video and help people out. Even though I am 1,000,000,000% sure no one cares about this. Maybe 2% of my viewers will actually watch this video and go, "Hey, that's pretty cool." So, yeah, I wanted to prove that Vergil can be complex. Maybe not as complex as Dante, but that he does take skill. And I also wanted to show people how the Doppelganger mechanic works. I wanted to break this, I didn't want it to be shrouded in mystery anymore, right? And I also wanted to break the stigma surrounding Vergil, like I said. So yeah, that's basically it. If you like this video and if you found it helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you would leave your feedback in the comments below, because believe me, your input is highly appreciated and can go a long way. So yeah, this is the most, by far the most laborious task I've ever had to tackle on this channel. And my tendency to procrastinate really didn't help, because I started working on these combos around April or May 2022, and I finished my last combo, the night combo, in October, so it was like 6 to 7 months. But I actually started analyzing these combos before I was actually done with all of them, around June or July 2022. So I made the intro, I started analyzing things, but then I had to rework everything from scratch because I wasn't satisfied with the way I was analyzing things. So that's why this whole thing took so long. I still, think that, look, I could have done this in under 2 months. I swear, 2 months tops. But I really, struggle to find motivation. I guess I need Vergil in my life. But yeah, this has been like, at first I really wanted to make it. I was like, nah, we're doing this. We're helping people. We're gonna break this mystery. We're gonna upload the video. But then, you know, I was like, oh man, this feels like I'm doing a thesis, honestly. I put more work into this than I did for my own thesis. So, yeah. So that's about it. Hope you enjoy the video. And as always, people, see ya, peace out, and have an amazing day.